Okay.
Sure.
So welcome viewers and listeners to the 6th podcast of Live Long with Leo, joined by Vigorous Steve. I'm very excited to have Vigorous Steve here. Vigorous Steve is sort of new to YouTube. However, he has one of the most unique bodybuilding coaching styles. He's very technical and very sophisticated coaching. I've been extremely impressed watching his videos over the last, must be a month or so.
Mm-hmm.
And briefly, I just wanted to say, this podcast is supposed to be about living long. It sounds like Live Long with Leo, but really what it's about is it's about the stories of people who have used either lifestyle or food or pharmaceutical drugs to change the way they perform. So as you know, I'm mostly interested in performance and longevity, but I'm also interested in performance. So Steve is very much one of those people. So I'd like to know a little bit more about Steve. To begin, Steve, I wanted to ask you, so I know that you're actually from Holland.
Right.
For some reason, I thought that your accent was Swedish. I don't know why I thought that.
It's in the same area, so, it's okay.
Yeah.
Some people come from Denmark because Dutch and Danish sounds very similar.
Yeah, I guess they're all Germanic countries, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's all very close. It's, when you look at the map, Europe is this big, and compared to the States or Australia or Asia, it's minuscule, so and we get to travel freely through the Schengen visa agreement.
Absolutely.
So there's no, I've been all over Europe. It's a fun place to visit.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you more about your experiences in Europe as well, but let's start with the beginning. I just want to know your family background. Do you grow up with 2 parents, siblings? What kind of,
So yeah, in the beginning, I grew up with 2 parents, but of course, at one point they separated, when I was about 15. And I've been kind of doing my own thing ever since. I was still living with my mom, but, going through a divorce and trying to take care of 2 kids financially, you turn into that cycle of working a lot. And my dad, was working a lot also. Luckily I was able to get enough freedom to kind of do my own thing. And, around that time I got into bodybuilding, so that kept me focused. Holland is full with people that like to party, right? And I did my fair share of partying as well, but, partying and bodybuilding, they don't really go together.
Interesting.
If you have a rough weekend, the next weekend gym is not going to be that productive, right? So I always find some sort of nice balance where I would be able to go out, to a nightclub or maybe one of those big dance festivals, but still get my bodybuilding in. So that kept me on the path, basically.
So you bring up an interesting point. I've been to Holland a couple of times. I've always been curious about the Dutch because as a foreigner visiting, especially Amsterdam, you don't really you always hear that the Dutch are not so much into this kind of, Amsterdam is unique, I guess, in a drug kind of focus. And you always hear that the Dutch are not so much into that. But like you said, there's a big music festival kind of. So what's it like there? Are Dutch into partying or is it more music festivals? Are they using psychoactive drugs?
Absolutely. It depends on the group that you're involving yourself in, of course. If you dive into the party scene, you're going to only be surrounded by people that are into the party drugs and psychoactive substances. And they go, every weekend they go from party to party all over Europe. And then the other side, you got people that do it recreationally once a month, every 6 months. That's basically what I fell into. It's okay. Once in a while you go out with a group of friends, you party, you have a good time. And then the rest of the time, might go to a bar or, I was studying at one point as well, from 16 to 21. I was going to university and, you surround yourself with people that drink a lot. And then you're the odd man out going to the gym as well. So, it's a balancing act, trying to stay social, but also trying to stay fit and active and, and getting your workouts in, because that's what I love doing. That's 100% me time. And you're 100% self-reliant, you educate yourself and you learn things. And, back then we didn't have the internet, right? Like we do now. We didn't have YouTube to learn from. So you go to the library. I see you have a huge library in the back behind you.
Yeah, I've collected a lot of books over the years. Actually, I've lost. I used to have another, not bigger, but I used to have another library that I just completely lost one of the times I was moving countries. But
right, it's very different. Yeah, I moved to Thailand. I didn't bring anything from Holland. I just restarted here, so no books. A lot of digital books, but Might have to print those out.
So just a couple of, this is for my own curiosity. So the reason why I asked you about the drug culture in, are you from Amsterdam or from another city?
No, so I'm from a small town called Almere, which is about 30 minutes from Amsterdam. It's basically an extension of Amsterdam, because Amsterdam is a big city. It's expensive. The buildings are old, and as the city grows, they start to build like extension cities outside. So Almere is one of them. Same city as where William Bonac used to train, so I used to go to the gym with him. And there's a very big community of bodybuilders there that they just love to train. And of course, you go to university sometimes in Amsterdam or university in Holland, because the University of Amsterdam was also extended to Almere, and that's how you travel back and forth between each city.
Well, the reason why it's interesting to me is because in the U.S. we have, for people who, promote this idea that drugs should be legalized, which of course many of us agree with in this kind of, this field of performance enhancement. But they usually point to Holland as being, drugs are legal now, but nobody uses them. It's just the foreigners that visit that's not true. Okay, this is really fascinating.
That's not true. I think because it's available, the mystique is gone.
Yeah.
But it's available. You can buy milk at the grocery store, and you can buy weed at the dispensary. Yeah. And it's perceived as equal. Okay, the weed, it's maybe a little bit different category, but the availability is just as easy. You can buy basically everything you want except for hard drugs, which are still available relatively easily. And because the threshold is so low, the mystique and the interest is not there.
Interesting. But because
it's not illegal, so there's no like, when people think, oh, it's illegal, there must be a reason. Well, it's not illegal, and nobody really cares. If you take it, you don't take it, okay, no big deal. That's your business.
And does Holland have sort of a drinking culture like the UK does, for example, where after work everybody goes to the bars and they get wasted?
No, not as much. No, I mean, the UK it's probably worse. When I went to Japan, it was the same. Everybody goes out drinking, with their colleagues. All the salarymen, and then they forget their briefcases.
They get completely wasted. Yeah,
it's surprising. You're sitting in the same restaurant and they're falling, left and right, and then they go home with the train, 2 more hours to kind of sober up. But in Holland, I mean, I think it's around like a little bit outside of the main areas, where there's maybe not so much to do. It's usually, through boredom that people start to drink more or start to take recreational drugs. And I do agree that Holland is pretty boring, if you live there. There's not much to do. And then, if you can play video games, right, when there's nothing to do, or you can go to the gym, or you can take some recreational drugs. So which category do you fall into? Luckily I was able to fall into the bodybuilding category, where in the evening, okay, the restaurants and the shopping malls are all closed, but the gym is open. So you go to the gym.
So one thing I didn't realize that you were into bodybuilding from such a young age, from 16. Yeah. Just backtrack slightly before that. I just wanted to ask about the anime. You mentioned in one video that you were very into anime when you were younger.
So this is, I mean, I have to go way back. I started working in a grocery store when I was 14, 15, to get a little bit of money together. And then I think I just signed up to the gym. My mom signed me up because she was also going to the gym. She's like, hey, you should go. It's fun. They have like this kids training, group where all the kids train, and then they join classes, twice a week. So I was like, okay, go to the gym. Then a guy at my, where I was working, he gave me Fist of the North Star on a VHS, triple dubbed, the worst quality ever with the yellow subtitles that you can barely read. And all those guys were super buff. So I was just signed up to the gym, and I got exposed to anime where everybody was, super muscular and that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, I was hooked. I started training. Didn't know anything about drugs, steroids, thank God. That took me 10 years later to figure that part out. But that's how I got inspired. And you keep watching the animes, and then I kept training. That's how I kind of progressed through the sport. But I haven't watched anime since I was 20 years old.
I think this is a common theme you can find in people involved in performance sports. Is a lot of us were into comic books as we were younger, and it's this idea of becoming more than what you are, and growing into some, elevated self, and also some ways some people will reflect on particularly bodybuilding, but also powerlifting and the power sports as being like an opportunity to get an armor on your body and something
Right.
to make you strong from the
Yeah,
exterior.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because I was a younger kid, so I was like 1 year younger than everybody else. They're automatically smaller and maybe a little bit bullied. And you just create this something for yourself, like to feel a little bit stronger, a little bit more powerful, a little bit on the same age level, because now you are bigger, or you're trying to be. You get a little bit more respect that way. And then Holland, when you think about back, it didn't mean anything, the bullying or feeling a little bit smaller. It's like minuscule. But at the time when you're younger, you're like, I got to step up a little bit. And you can do that through training, and whether that's American football or rugby or bodybuilding or powerlifting. I mean, I think sport is very empowering.
Very much.
And a lot of people can go through, adversity or empower themselves through bodybuilding. Or any sport that gives them total control of what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people, like, football is very popular in Holland. That's a team sport, right? But I never felt that the guys that did team sports got really empowered in the same sense as the individual sports, because you're 100% relying on yourself. Whereas a team sport like football, they got a coach, shouting down your neck to go and do the work, and then you got 11 other players to lift you up when your game is not too good. But in bodybuilding, if you're not good, it's only in here. Well, in here later on, of course, when you got to learn how to recover and eat and take some supplements to stay healthy. But it's all dependent on you. That's why it's for the guys that do it for long term, the guys usually are completely self-reliant.
That's so true. You bring up such an important aspect of it, which is that these sports attract people who we can't say for certain, but we would assume they must have a natural desire to rely on themselves, because and that on its own creates a unique kind of people in these sports, because maybe we're all a little bit slightly antisocial, or
I think so. Yeah.
yeah.
I think so. Well, we like to, like, for me, I like to be by myself also, and even though I help a ton of people, after a while you just kind of like, you want to retreat into your own little circle or bubble and just give yourself an hour. And luckily that's what training is for. So every morning I go to the gym and I get my 1 hour, 1.5 hours of me time in, and that's enough. And then the rest of the day I'm happy, and my aggression's out too. Use a little bit, vent a little bit of aggression through the weights.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the day I can just chat all day with my clients and then people on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, and then give back, so to say.
It does attract people who are somewhat introverted. This is so true.
I think so. Yeah. That's why it's surprising that some guys are so introverted, like Tony Youth, for example. He's so out there. I'm always so surprised. It's like, man, how can you do that? Because I'm definitely not like that. I probably have social anxiety, Like, after a while, my emotional energy is just completely drained, and then I need to retreat and recharge. And I've noticed that many times when I went to the World Championships, you got like 5, 10, maybe even 15 clients competing. I'm running through the hotels trying to peak everybody. And then after that, I just want to be by myself in the closet, recharge for a week.
I asked Tony about that also. I was so curious about his extroversion. But let me ask you, before I get to your move to Thailand, and which we won't get into too much detail, but before that, I wanted to ask you, you became a financial consultant. So you say you went to school quite early. 16 is very early, even for Europe. It's usually 17, right?
Yeah, so I was a young student. So I was like, I'm born in September. So normally you would go, to school 10 months later. But since I was, born on 20th of September, you're like 1 month into the school term. So I was the youngest, basically, and all the other guys that were born in September also relatively young. But most people would just wait. My parents were like, "Oh, you're smart enough. You go to school." Okay, so I was 1 year younger than everybody else. So I went to university also, maybe a year or two younger than most people. So I went to university when I was 16, and then, of course, a month later, I turned 17. And then, we were a little bit up to par. But it's funny, we did that. You have like a test, right, when you go to university. And, just doing the IQ test and the logic test, and I can't even remember, it's such a long time ago. And then you finished top 5 out of all the applicants. I was like, okay, I guess I belong here, because actually I wanted to work for a year, but parents were like, no, you go to university. Biggest regret of my life. Yeah.
Going to university or not working first? Oh, you regret?
Yeah, going to university, biggest regret of my life.
Oh, well, this is going to get very interesting then, because my second question was, after university, you became a financial consultant.
Yeah.
Which
but that was an Oracle Finance. So it's a computer program that handles the financial aspects of many businesses. Okay. Right? So it's not technically a financial consultant, because nobody's going to take advice from a 20-year-old kid, right? Yeah. I was working with the financial computer systems of Oracle Business, and then you help automate the financial aspect of a business, basically turn people into a computer program. That was during the IT boom.
So it's like information systems.
Right, information systems. Right, so there's a little bit of programming, a little bit of modeling through their business processes, talking to a lot of people, how do they work, try to, look how they work, and then put it into paper and design a computer program to replace them. That was the whole automation procedure, of that time. And then a lot of people lost their jobs because they got replaced by computer programs. Yeah.
So this is really fascinating, because so you first of all, you mentioned that you have a regret of going to university in the first place, but I noticed something very interesting, which I also, I think, share with you in some way, which is you sort of went in a process that was what Big Lenny would call cookie cutter, which is the standard sort of path for a well-to-do person. Like becoming a consultant, and you went to a good school, is usually what people like. That's, for example, if you meet a girl when you're 22, she sees you have a good job, you're reliable, you look like you're in a good position in the society, and maybe people were looking up to you. You did well for yourself, but then you changed your life dramatically. And just for the viewers to know, Steve has an amazing video on his channel. It's like 30 minutes long about Thailand. But if you watch this video, you'll learn about how he moved to Thailand originally. So I won't get Steve to repeat everything here, but basically you did like what Tony did also, which is a 180 on your life. Right. So I wanted to ask you the same question I put to Tony, which is a question I ask myself and other people all the time, which is, did you make this change more out of love or fear? So what I mean by that is love for what's new, or it's dislike or dislike of what you had, or fear of where it was going.
I lost my job in the consultancy firm because of the economic crisis of 2009, 2010. So I was forced to make a decision. I think it was mostly escapism. I was just sick of Holland. Yeah. I couldn't take it anymore. Dutch people are very interesting. Their friendship is based on arguing. It's super weird. So you have friends, right? And you make, let's go and do this, do that. No, because I want to. And it's like always this little fight.
Well, you bring up an important point, which is I also wanted to ask you, what is it like in Holland? I mean, the culture, what is it that you didn't like about the European or Dutch culture?
I think it's just Dutch because, you have to differentiate, because I lived in Holland for 20 plus years. And then when you go to the other countries, you're a tourist. And you don't really get to see, you're happy, you're spending money, you don't have to work, there's no stressors of life. So you're always in a better mood. That's the whole point of holiday. You get to relax. And when you're relaxed, you interact with the locals a lot better. But when you go back home, you got stress, bills to pay, deadlines to meet, social things stand in line at certain places. It just builds up frustration. And I associate Holland a little bit with that frustration and the negativity. And it's not Holland's fault. It's just me not being able to do what I wanted in life. And I found that in Thailand, I can do whatever I want, as long as I respect the locals and I don't break any laws, I get to do what I want. And it's a very liberating feel. So when I came here in 2006, a friend of mine invited me for 2 weeks. I was like, man, all this money I make in Holland is like, I'm a millionaire in Thailand. I can do fun stuff every day and I can't finish my money. So, then slowly the exodus start. And now I only go back for Holland for 2 weeks, and that's, once or twice, once every 2 years, once every year. And that's all I can take. You know, you first meet the family, and then it's nice, good to see each other again, and then those old frustrations start to creep up.
Yeah, which might be somewhat like sometimes when you're a part of a society that, I don't know if this applies to Holland, but sometimes when you're a part of a society that's your own culture and it sort of has an old cultural traditions, you're restricted by that culture in some ways. You feel
That's
good,
how I felt, yeah.
like
And
people know you,
Holland is
everybody knows what, gossip, things like that. I don't know.
so the gossip I never really minded me. That's part of life. But it's look at it this way. In Holland, everybody wants you to be a little bit equal, you know, and then you make a little bit more money, you pay a little bit more taxes. You know, you buy a nicer car, and your neighbor's like, hey, you're devaluing the neighborhood. You got a Toyota, and then your Porsche doesn't belong in this neighborhood. You know, this kind of stuff. And whereas in Thailand or other countries that I've been to, Dubai, Tokyo, you know, when you're doing well, it's celebrated.
Mm.
You know, like, oh, good for you. How did you get that? And then you share some information, and you both get better. Instead of people trying to pull you down to their level, you know, you want to start a business on it. It's a mountain of paperwork, and then a mountain of taxes on top. You don't really feel incentivized to do anything better than your surroundings, because your surroundings trying to pull you down. And after a couple of years, it's like, okay, you don't like that I'm bodybuilding, I look a little bit bigger. You don't like that I'm doing financially well. You don't like if I spend a little bit more money contributing to the economy. What am I doing here?
This is exactly how, very similar to how my wife Lucie talks about living in Lyon, France, which is where she's from.
Yeah.
She moved to the US herself. Similar reasons. Talking about Dubai briefly, Dubai is, I know you're interested to learn more about Dubai, and you were thinking maybe one day you may move there, because as you mentioned, Thailand is getting much more expensive now. The last time I went to Thailand was 2003. The first time was 2001, a couple of years before you. Yeah, and I spent a month there.
Changed. You should go. It's like Europe now. It's completely changed.
That's what I hear, and I mean, I don't know if it sounds exciting to me, the fact that it changed, because it was an idyllic place in 2001 and 3.
It still is. All the countries that I've been to, including Dubai, Thailand, is still looking for what I want in my life, what my wife wants. It's still the best place to live.
Okay, it's not done in like too commercial or too tourist oriented.
Well, it depends on where you go. And turn on the air conditioning. It's getting hot in Thailand. It depends on where you go. So I'm living in Bangkok, a little bit out of the center, and it's pretty quiet. It's rural, if you want to call it that. Local people, and then the local way of life. And then, of course, if I want a little bit of action, it's a 20-minute trip into the city center, and I can go to, well, not right now thanks to the pandemic, but I can go to 1,000 different restaurants, 1,000 different hotels, cinemas, activities. There's a ton of gyms here that I can train. There's so much variety, but I'm living a little bit out of it. So I have a quiet area. There's no noise. There's no traffic, no nothing.
Fascinating.
You have to design that for yourself, so you can choose to live where you want. And if you decide to live in Pattaya or Phuket, you're 100% in the action. Maybe the wrong kind of action, but if you're single and you're young and you have a little bit of disposable income, Phuket and Pattaya has its place.
But it's certainly more expensive, because Tony was showing me his apartment, and he was showing me it's a nice place and it's only like $700 a month. I was like, wait a minute, $700 a month? I could live in Alabama. Now, maybe I don't want to live in Alabama, but
have you been to Pattaya?
No, is that where he lives?
Yeah, it is. He's back and forth between Pattaya and Bangkok. So in Pattaya, that's like I call it the asshole of the world. It's like 4chan in real life. It's just like everything that's, and you can do a lot of fun stuff, but I can only stand it for like 2 or 3 days. And then because there's so much, the tourism, like you're a walking wallet when you go there. And there's so much commerce that all the commerce is trying to pull you in, especially now that, the travel ban is in there. So you go there, it's like, hey, you can't walk. You have to wear like, noise canceling earphones just to walk around there, because the attention is astronomical. And for somebody with social anxiety, it's not a good place. But for Tony, he loves the attention, so that's a perfect place for him to spend his days. And there's another muscle factory there, which is a great gym, with a lot of equipment. So we got one in Bangkok, that's where I live close by, and then another one in Pattaya. And it's you can train for hours and still not do all the equipment.
It sounds like I've been there. Maybe I was there actually, and I didn't realize it. It's not like the night markets in Bangkok. I thought those were.
The night markets is just you can eat some food and buy some T-shirts and some counterfeit Nikes. And,
Yes, counterfeit. I almost actually. I tell you a funny story. When I was 13 years old in Bangkok, I was trying to negotiate a watch to buy from a gentleman, and this is 2003. And apparently, he got upset with me negotiating or turning away at the end. He pulled out a butterfly knife and chased me down the street. So I was running. This guy's trying. I don't know if he's trying to stab me or just trying to scare me, but I was only like 13, 12 years old. I was running so far away. So it's a funny.
They got something that's called loss of face. If you offend them in a certain way, they kind of go 180 degrees on you. So the culture is very, very nice and friendly and open and easygoing until you offend them, and then all shit breaks. Goes loose, and then you got to push them pretty far. So I don't know how you negotiate it, but
I thought I didn't. I thought I didn't do anything, but that's a respectable part of any culture. Certainly honor is so important. It's a loss of face, but it's also honor, and they're such friendly people in general. I don't want to give a misimpression, but
no, it depends on who you meet and then what happens. So the Thailand has its horror stories, but most of the stories are going to be good.
Absolutely. So a couple of one other question just briefly before I forget. You mentioned something very interesting in one of your videos. You were reflecting on how people who live in rural areas, like in the country and stuff, tend to be more friendly, tend to have sort of better. You made it seem that you enjoy their personalities more. Is that true?
Yeah, it's more authentic.
Authentic, exactly.
Authentic. But it's the same as any big city in any part of the world. Like I've been to Japan and Dubai, and the pressure of life gets to people. The pressure to pay bills, the social pressure to look a certain way, the desire to make money, and then losing a significant amount through the taxes or whatever things you have to pay for. I mean, it doesn't contribute to your mental well-being. It makes you a little bit stressed. So when you don't have that, or there's less of that, you're generally happier. I mean, I'm way happier here than I was back home too, even though I'm living in a big city. And but I'm doing well for myself, so that helps also. But the people in the countryside or a little bit outside of Bangkok, they're just a little bit more friendly, a little bit more easygoing because they don't have the pressures that come along with living in a big city.
Yeah, and that's true everywhere.
Right. And the social network is usually bigger because they're still with their families, right? A lot of people move to the city. Now they're alone, maybe they've got a partner or some colleagues or whatever. But with family, it's always a bit better relation, right? So if you got a good support system around you, I think your life is generally way better.
I agree.
And I know a lot of people that are 100% happy in Bangkok, but that's usually when they're financially off a little bit better to deal with the pressures come along with living in a big city.
And also this may have something to do with like you said, being away from the family, but also when the city is composed mostly of people that have immigrated there, and sometimes it like I'm talking about Los Angeles, where I live right now, people tend to just treat each other in a kind of disposable way.
Yeah, there's a distance because you don't know each other. Stepping in front of each other, it creates some friction.
It's sort of like a minor version of online comments where you can say something to someone, you'll never see him again,
Right. You could just block them, by making,
Exactly. So talking about living as an expat around the world, we mentioned briefly you may have an interest in moving to Dubai in the future.
It's a little bit off the table, but.
Oh, how come?
Well, I bought a house.
Oh, you already bought in Dubai?
Yeah, I'm in my house. It's only the white wall. We didn't have time to really decorate it yet.
Oh, in Thailand. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we bought a house a year ago, and because we went to Dubai like 3 times, and then the first 2 times it was great. So that's the holiday romanticizing period, where you're 100% optimistic, but you don't understand yet how people are living. And then the 3rd time we went, they incorporated the taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And then already half the people we met the first 2 times, they left because it wasn't financially worth it. and I'm a little bit, with my background, I'm a little bit financially incentivized. And that plays a big part of the decision-making process. So I would still like to go there for a holiday. Actually, I want to go now, but you can't go there. I can't go anywhere over the world. But I think it's still a good place, especially if you're in bodybuilding. Let's say Thailand really goes south for whatever reason, then Dubai would be the second best option for me. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
some background on Dubai for the viewers, just to know, Dubai is an interesting emirate because it's never had any oil revenue. So people think of Dubai and they think this is an oil-rich state, but actually Dubai only sold oil for about 3 or 4 years in the 60s.
Oh, really?
So Dubai was built entirely upon the entrepreneurial nature of its citizens. Most of Dubai's citizens come from the other emirates in the United Arab Emirates. They immigrated there, leaving their tribes and their families. This began very long ago, maybe in the 1880s, when the first pearl, the community used to rely on pearl trade.
In the old city, right? They had fishing, pearl trade.
Yes.
Quite a lot.
Well, historically, this area relied on pearl trading, and there were two depressions in the pearl trade there. One was in the 1880s and one was in the 1930s. Both of these depressions caused massive immigration from the other emirates like Abu Dhabi and these other places. And so Dubai is unique in this region as being one of the only places where the locals are actually also most of them immigrants, except for one family, which is the ruling family there and their tribe called Albu Thalassa. But the other people are all sort of immigrated there. So it has a unique entrepreneurial element, which is what built up the economy. But the economy may have, and this is a matter of opinion, may have overexpanded in real estate. And
that's what I felt, because they're not even giving away the lease contracts anymore. There's so many buildings. After them, they can't even lease to people. Not that the people are there, because some of them left, obviously, through the tax rules. But I heard that when I was there last time, is that almost 80%, non-occupancy rate. So 20% occupancy rate. And that's because they don't give away the lease contracts anymore. They're overbuilding. And that gives a little bit of feeling of a huge bubble.
Yeah, it gives everyone that feeling. I mean, it's overbuilt, but at the same time, you have to keep in mind that a lot of the people who work in Dubai actually live in Sharjah or Ras Al Khaimah, which are
a little bit out. Yeah, because it's cheaper to live there.
Much cheaper. So a lot of the people who work there live there. So it's an interesting situation. But there are other countries that are interesting as well. Like have you ever been to Morocco?
No, I haven't been there. No.
This is if you like Thailand, you might like Marrakesh or some of the other places in Morocco. Very free, spirited people. One of the unfortunate things about Dubai, and not to talk too much, but I know you're interested in Dubai, so we talked about it before the interview. Dubai has, in the 90s, early 90s, Dubai was like a dream. Expats loved living there. It had an authentic sense of culture. It was very open, much less people than it has now. Now Dubai is sort of, it's created this weird cultural environment where these expats out from outside Dubai that have come there mostly came there because of a desire to make money. So the culture became, and there's a lot of billionaires in Dubai. I mean, you can't imagine.
I met a few of them at the conventions.
No, I'm not talking about the Arab billionaires.
They're all painted with diamonds.
Yeah, exactly. But not just the Arab billionaires. I'm talking about like Russians and all kinds. So basically, it created in a society a very materialistic culture. Now,
I can see that. Yeah.
You don't find this among the locals as much, but the locals only comprise at maximum 10% of the population. So most
that's 90% expat from what I believe. Yeah. No, that's usually, when everybody starts to make new money and they're, able to spend it, and, again, it turns to a one-up contest,
Exactly.
And then that's fine. But when I was there, I went to the outlet stores to buy some Under Armour because I have my size there and they don't have it in Thailand. And I went to all the gyms. So you get a very warped perspective of what Dubai really is like, because I didn't work there. And even if I would decide to move there, I'd be self-employed. So I wouldn't be exposed to the, the office life or you'll have to build up your relations to go to the gym. And, most of the super rich people, they're usually not in the gym, or if they're there, they got, their 300 dirham, what was it, EAD? Dirham coach, or 900 dirham personal trainer.
Absolutely. The gym culture there is very good. There's no question about that. it's very hardcore. It's people are like in Kuwait, they're very into it. And
Mhm.
now another place where I was going to ask you about is Turkey. Have you been to Turkey yet?
No, also never been to Turkey. No.
Turkey may
I'd
be
love
a
to
good.
go. Yeah, Istanbul, I would love to go, man. It's so many countries on my list. I've been all over Asia, all over Europe, and there's still plenty of countries to go. But it's, I'm 36 now, and then when you're married and settled and working a lot, it's a little bit difficult to commit so much time to traveling, and it's so opposing to bodybuilding. So when I traveled for a whole year through Asia. I completely gave up bodybuilding. I was just sightseeing for a whole year straight, and it's a great way of life. But now you're trying to balance that, and I usually try only to go away for a week because my work never stops as a coach. So I'm just chatting the whole time on, when I'm traveling, because those guys paid for the service, so they don't have a question. Yeah, of course, the service is going to continue, which makes traveling a little bit more difficult. And I think I got it out of my system also.
You bring
I've
up
been,
also though that you have a wife, you got married, and I realize you have a Thai wife, which
yeah,
is fantastic. So how did you meet your wife, if I might ask, just briefly? It's
in the gym.
really.
In the gym, yeah, it's a funny story. So I just came back to Thailand because I traveled for a year and then I went to Holland, tried to look for a job, which, the economy was still bad. So still had some savings, still had some income. Went to Thailand, like, we'll just see what happens. And then I met my wife. So that was the best thing that happened because she was walking around the gym like she owned the place. We signed up around the same time at one of the bigger fitness centers there. She was just training instinctually, just a little bit of back, a little bit of legs, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But she looked like a fitness competitor. So I told her, I said, you look great. Why don't you compete? And then 3 other guys at the gym, in the bodybuilding industry said, why don't you compete? So she competed and placed top 3.
Wow.
And then I started helping her. And then she placed top 3 again. And then she, placed top 3 again. Then she got recruited into the national team. And in the meantime, you build up a relationship, the coaching fee has to be paid. I'm joking. So we build a relationship through that sense, and I knew her for several months. So you have some time to get to know each other and then build mutual respect, right, before you get into a relationship. We started living with me. I started helping her more and more and more. I got more and more clients, and that's how we kind of grew at the same time. So her personal training and competitive career really took off with the help of my coaching abilities. And my coaching really took off because she got so successful, winning show after show after show after show. She ended up with 4 times world champion.
Wow.
Yeah, and 3 times the Asian champion. Yeah.
That's a beautiful story, actually.
Yeah. So we kind of teamed up, and our relationship has been absolutely fantastic. And then you realize, like, okay, this is going to be the one. You put a ring on it, and you get married.
Absolutely. This is the
which I never expected to happen. Being the my way or the highway guy that I used to be.
Yeah, me too. It was a life-changing experience to have someone, a wonderful woman. I mean, I really can't talk well enough about marriage. When you find the right woman, it changes your life. It's so enriching.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If you're a team, you're basically equal in most of the things that you're doing, right? It's amazing, man. And then you can just grow together. Exactly. And so our relationship has been fantastic. And I never met a woman like my wife before I met her. And after that, of course, you're not really interested to meet anybody else anymore. So I can't talk for all the other women that I might have met and talked to, if they were up to par. No, but she really opened my eyes to, to the possibility of being in a long-term relationship. And no regrets. Oh,
that's fantastic. That's a really beautiful story. Yeah.
Right. So we've been together now for almost 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, married for 4 years married. Yeah.
And for me, when I talk to somebody that's been married or been in a long-term relationship, healthy relationship, it always makes me know, if there's something very wrong with someone, that won't work. So automatically that person values loyalty.
Right.
They care about the people close to them. It means a lot in the way it indicates what the values of someone,
Well, you can, like people, they put themselves out there, right? But especially with men, you can kind of see how they are based on their wives, on their girlfriends. Absolutely. Because in the end, they're going to be together 24/7. And if the girlfriend has something wrong with them, the guy probably also has something wrong with it, But if they're equal and they're doing very well, they're both got a good reputation. At least it validates, what they're doing.
And that's the most beautiful aspect of that kind of relationship, where where it's a give and take, and it's a real partnership where I would say equal. I'm very fortunate.
I think it's also incredibly rare. I don't see it a lot around me, unfortunately, and I wish more people could get to experience that, because it's such a plus in your life. It's such a positive experience where you get to come home and even though if your stress is sky high, you got a partner to completely take that away from you, because the partner doesn't bring any stress into the relationship. But I see that around me a lot. It might also be from the cultural differences, the Thai girls and then the foreigner guys, they clash culturally. But I don't really experience that. Maybe because my wife has also traveled quite a bit, and your wife has obviously traveled. So it helps, and if you're considered equal and you both enrich each other intellectually, and sky's the limit.
Yeah,
and I wish more people get to experience that, because people always tell me, "Yeah, Steve, you're lucky." I said, I don't think so. I think I deserved it. I think I kind of deserved it, but I just wish more people would be able to experience that. But I think it's very rare from what I see around me. Maybe that's Thailand or Thai women or the kind of foreigner that comes here. There's a special type of foreigner that comes to Thailand.
Exactly, that's true.
So it's. But do you know a lot of people that are in your situation where there's super healthy relationship that extend each other, and it's like the teammate in heaven?
Maybe I've met like 2 couples in the last few years. It's very rare. You know what I think it is? I think that people sometimes are attracted to the wrong aspects of. I've been through this in my own life. Sometimes they're attracted to something like subconscious within themselves. They're looking for something. Like sometimes you'll find a man who will chase after a woman who's rude or not nice, because they want to achieve that. Or sometimes people are very superficial. They're only looking at the looks of the woman. And
but it's not a car.
Yeah.
It's not a car.
No, exactly. You're not buying something, and it's not an achievement. It's not like an award. Oh, I got this woman.
You should definitely go through this phase, when you're like 20 to 25. Derek from More Plates, More Dates made a very good video about this, about the pickup artist phase, and get that out of your system so you can focus on business. And that's 100% true. Just get it out until the point you're so jaded you don't even want to date anymore, and then you're open for a relationship. Just get it out.
You're so right, and you learn during that phase. You learn what not to do. You learn what not to be attracted to.
You definitely don't know what you don't want out of a relationship. So it's but a lot of guys. So what it happens here, that a lot of guys, they start focusing on money, right? They go through that career step, and they a little bit nerdy, maybe, not as socially capable. And then they come here when they're in their 30s, 35s, and then they meet, a conniving Thai woman that has been through a decent amount of men prior. They got their talents right in the guy, and they get completely drained. And then they blame the Thai girl, but it's in reality is their, lack of identifying what is a good person and what is a bad person.
So true. If you have money, it is very dangerous to be able to judge. It's very difficult to be able to judge if a woman really likes you, because it's not the woman's fault, but you're just a target for something.
They shouldn't show off too much.
Exactly.
That's one of the few Dutch things I do agree with. Just don't show off too much, and then let people come into your life that appreciate you for who you are. And then you can open up a little bit, about your financial status. But if you meet a woman that earns respectable by herself, she doesn't need your money.
That's the only way. Yeah.
She just wants your love.
And sometimes it's unfortunate, like, a couple of years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, this Jeff Bezos guy from Amazon, who I used to like, he seemed like a nice guy, a cool guy to me. But he divorced his, and I don't know the details, obviously, but he divorced his long-term, the woman who was with him when he was nerdy and he looked like a loser, and she stood by him the whole time. And he went, and I guess, we don't know the details, but it seems like he cheated on her with this other chick with the fake body and all this kind of fake stuff. and whose exes are all NBA players, by the way. I did some research. I was like, this is not a good sign.
No.
So money doesn't bring wisdom. That's what I know now.
No, that's for sure. No, especially now when it comes into relation with people, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
It's you need a little bit. You know, if you want to live in another country, you got to be a bit of a cowboy. You know, because you're always a foreigner, and you know, we really moved to some. But you grew up in the States, right? You were born there.
I was born in the U.S.,
Yeah.
but I mentioned my mother is from the U.S., but my father is from the Middle East. So I travel. I lived in various countries, including Dubai before. A lot
Right.
of.
So when you look a little bit different than everybody else, you're always at a disadvantage, which means you got to turn yourself into a cowboy and get resourceful.
That's
You know,
true.
and get people smart. Yeah, because people treat you differently, right? So you gotta see through the facade that's going on, and then you don't have to be too vocal about it, because then you're just creating, you know, resistance. But you have to be mindful, you know, what's going on around you, and that saves you a lot of stress and drama in life.
Now I'll ask you one last thing about Thailand before we start
Of
talking
course,
about
yeah.
bodybuilding and YouTube. Have you ever had the opportunity to do any kind of meditation with the monks there?
No,
Oh, this is something I'm
no,
very interested in. There's a very interesting a tradition of meditation in Thailand, which is sort of unique. They're called the Thai forest monks.
yeah, no,
I
there's
really
some.
want to, yeah. They're,
So that's a bit of a tourist thing. I looked
yeah.
into that when I was there. It's so they. It's basically as a Westerner going to the Kung Fu school in China, or a Westerner, or, you know, another guy going to Mecca. You haven't grown up with that religion, or that, so they still treat you as an outsider, and probably because you don't have the experience and the cultural enrichment that is required to benefit from it. I don't think you'll get as much out of it as the local people, because that's been part of their life, their entire life. And I've been to a lot of temples. The most remote temples you can't even find on the map when I was traveling. And you're always welcome to join, and you know, people are very, very friendly. But I think the actual experience, I think you need a few years in that. You know, so if you're a Buddhist, yeah, of course, by all means. But for me, it was always like, okay, even if I do it, I'm probably not going to get it.
I get what you mean.
Trying to teach bodybuilding to a beginner, you need a few years.
I see what you mean. That's very true. Okay, moving away from
It's very interesting to visit the temples. It's always you always feel a little bit at peace. Let's put it that way. I've been to Bhutan, which is a very small country in between China and India, close to Pakistan. And that's probably the most culturally enriched and spiritual country that I've been to. It's yeah, that was a really good experience. One of my good friends is from there, and I was able to meet the Prince of Bhutan, which was very, very interesting.
Wow.
That country is beautiful. It's one of the few countries, Bhutan and Mongolia, where you can still feel authentic culture that hasn't been spoiled, you know, by a westernization or a Koreification. You know, South Korea is very popular in Asia, so all the K-pop, that's everywhere. So that's like the westernized, you know, but from South Korea, it's going to Koreanized.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So you don't really find that in Bhutan and Mongolia.
Mongolia, definitely not. I've been very interested in traveling to Mongolia for maybe 10 years. I just haven't had the opportunity. You've been to Mongolia?
Yeah, twice. One time for traveling, and then, you know, maybe 8 years later for the World Championships in Mongolia.
Yeah.
Where my wife competed. So I didn't see so much, but I was able to visit some of the old places, and it hasn't changed that much. You know, people are, you know, of course it's developing. But the first time I was there, we went on a horse for 3 weeks, on a horse trek for 3 weeks, you know, through the northern mountains close to Russia. And there was, you know, 2 weeks on a horse. What more can you say?
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll leave. Although I'm really interested, finding this very fascinating. Yeah, exactly. So we'll talk briefly. So my understanding of Steve is that you have your YouTube channel and you have a Facebook group for subscribers, and then you also have coaching clients and so on.
Right.
But when did you start the Facebook group or the YouTube exactly? Because you also have a podcast that's a bit older, I think, than the YouTube channel.
Actually, the YouTube I started years ago. That was part of the Vigorous Fitness. I started around the same time, actually, even before I met my wife. So I came to Thailand, like, okay, I'm going to do a YouTube channel about bodybuilding in Thailand because there's so many bodybuilding channels in America, UK, whatever. So I started going to gyms, recording where to eat, where to train, fun activities on the side. I met my wife. I started coaching people. I looked at the CPM of YouTube, the cents per, the revenue stream. And I was like, okay, coaching is way more lucrative. So I just went in completely that direction. And I only posted videos of my wife's competition for like 5 years.
Mm.
And then I recently picked that up about 3 months ago as part of promotion. I'm completely transparent, just to get my name and services out there.
Mm.
And that's probably how we got connected, because some of your fans and or your followers and my followers, we all follow the same content, right? And they're like, you should get on board with Leo. He was with Amin, but something happened, and
Yeah,
maybe he needs another guy too. So that's how we kind of got to this point. But with the Facebook group, I think I noticed that with the clients, not everybody needs coaching, not even everybody needs consultations, but most people still have questions.
Mm.
So I decided just to put everything I know that at least works, and what doesn't work, so things you can do and shouldn't do, put it to paper, and then turn it into like a school, basically. A school for bodybuilding. Of course, you have those websites. You have Matt Jansen's Camp Jansen, John Meadows Mountain Dog website, Jordan Peters Trained by JP website. So I was signed up to some of those sites, and I knew which things were good, which things were bad. And what I noticed is that most people, they just want to interact.
Mm.
They want to interact with the guy that they feel is valuable, brings them valuable information. And that takes a significant amount of extra time. And you'll be able to service less people, and you'll have to increase the rate. So that's why the rate is not cheap to join the group. But at least I get to interact with people one-on-one and answer their questions directly. Whereas on the other websites, there's just articles, and maybe once a week there's an opportunity to ask questions. And then the answer is never really personalized to their situation. So I decided,
they're not very,
no, it's not very personalized. And I understand, if you've got 5,000 members, it's impossible to personalize stuff. And then, the more popular you get, you got to be a little bit careful, because, lawsuits, especially when you're in the States, it appears like they happen like that. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit scary to me. So you got to put all the disclaimers everywhere. Luckily I don't really fall under that jurisdiction. So I can be a little bit freer with my content. So I decided to do the group, everything I know, over 100 articles right now, 700, 800 pages worth of content. And then people get to ask questions. And I've been doing that for a year, and it's grown to about 50, 60 members, which is not a lot. It's not a main source of income. And some of those are our clients that were already there because, they like to read what I have to say in the group. And then they like to have personal contact where I get to update their programs and design their supplementation and nutrition and, steroids, obviously. And so just another way to get my knowledge out for the people that don't require, a coaching or consultation.
I think it's a brilliant idea. And just for the audience to know, Steve really does write detailed articles. I'm not part of the group, but I've realized that he really researches. They're 20 pages long, and they're group. So there's a lot. It's like an information source and a community and interaction.
Everything that I know that is valid and it might not work, that's in the group.
Absolutely.
And then people get to ask questions. So I personalize it for them. So sometimes it's small questions. Sometimes it's like this much long, and I do my best to answer it. And most of the people find it incredibly valuable, especially when they first joined and then they see the index of the article. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of information.
Absolutely. So the interesting thing is you've been using the YouTube as a promotional item, which really you provide a lot of information as well. I know you don't provide all your information. You keep a lot for the clients as well, but I gotta say, to be honest with you, it's the most sophisticated bodybuilding content I've come across. other than I also there's another channel you mentioned, Derek, who has a fantastic, mostly on PEDs. I think his is more on.
He's a little bit more on the PEDs and the scientific side, and then of course expertise is hair loss, which that's a choice. So my expertise is more towards digestion and acne prevention, for example, because we all turn into experts of the things we have to problem solve.
Yeah.
So for Derek, I think it's mostly hair loss and some of his genetic limitations, which I'm sure you guys are going to talk about when you do a podcast about genetics, because that's your expertise, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well,
I see you do the genetic consultation, so I'm sure you're very knowledgeable in that aspect.
Most of my interest, to be honest, is in cognitive enhancement, as well as living longer. I tried to, but because of me knowing Amin, and this is how I got into making this stuff, because Amin asked me to join his channel originally. I knew him not to do with this stuff. And because of that, a lot of the people who follow me happen to be bodybuilders. And because I was an arm wrestler before, so I relate to them. I watched the same content before. So sometimes they ask me a lot of the same questions. And then that's why I make videos on the subject. But I would rather talk about cognitive enhancement, getting over depression, getting over anxiety, getting over brain damage, and then the genetic part, because I've been into genetics for a very long time.
Right.
But you're right. Everyone has specialty.
Yeah, we all have our expertise, and then we kind of roll with that, and you get your following based on your expertise, obviously. But I try to keep it a little bit more varied, because bodybuilding is so all-encompassing, and so that's why I switched. Be first as a marketing strategy, transparency, just answer questions, because that's how I got all my followers from Instagram as subscribers on YouTube.
Oh.
So it's a weekly Q&A. Ask all your questions. I'll record videos for the good questions. And all you guys are going to go from follower to subscriber to YouTube. I didn't say that, but that's what happened. That's the business attitude you got to have for it. So my subscribers went from like 1,500 to 3,000. And then usually that's enough to kind of grow the channel organically. Because the funny thing is about YouTube and Instagram is nobody wants to be the first follower.
No, they don't like.
Look at it. 500 followers. This guy doesn't know anything. They don't even watch your video. So I had to grow it, somewhere. So I just moved a decent amount of Instagram followers to YouTube subscribers. And then when I realized,
you had a lot of Instagram followers before you started.
4,500. It's not a lot. And people always laugh, say, Steve, you only got 4,000 followers. I said, yeah, but I only need 1% to say yes to a service, and I make a decent amount of money doing it as a coach. There's 40 clients. You can do the math. It's great income.
Yeah, and it's just about who your followers are, because if your followers are very serious people and very into the content and not just watching it for entertainment, then those are the people that will want to really work on whatever information.
Exactly. Yeah. I just posted in a Facebook group. Somebody asked me how to grow your follower base and how to be a good coach. And in the end, it's about reputation. And people that like you or somehow feel related to what you're doing and your philosophy, your stance on certain subjects, those are going to be the guys that work with you.
And you have those people, because that's how I found out about you, because so many people were telling me, Vigorous Steve. Originally, it was about the podcast, but even till now, I always get messages, well, Vigorous Steve said this, Vigorous Steve. I don't hear many other people's names. Actually, I hear your name.
We always end up with the same following. So I think you, me, and then Greg Duchette, before you went vanilla. And then Derek, like those are like 4 main content providers. And then there's a couple other guys, they mostly do the podcast. And then what some of the smarter followers do, they'll take my stance, and then they'll go to you to validate it.
Yeah.
Your stance, and then they go to me to validate. Leo said this. What do you think about that?
I was actually getting a lot of questions about pregnenolone and DHEA, and I was saying, where are these things coming from? And then I went on your channel, and I was like, this is the master of pregnenolone. This is where it's
right. So I figured it went out a long time ago. Is that people started taking ACG, right? And I saw so much blood work of people that go on a year or 2 years of ACG because they want to maintain testicular size and semen production. and then their semen production is in the gutter, and their ball's still small.
Mm.
They don't notice it because it's such a decline. And ask them, if you keep it in your hand, do you feel, are you holding something? Or, so no, not like before. So why are you taking ECG then?
Mm.
And then you put them on a replacement, of pregnenolone and DHA. And even though it's produced in the adrenals and some other organs, not only in the testicles, by supplementing it, your hormone ratio, your hormone balance feels as close to natural as possible. And then you get a little bit more extra conversion. So those guys, you allow their estrogen to climb a little bit. And then they don't need to take ACG. And all the smart bodybuilders that I know, they say don't take ACG on cycle because it prevents the success of your PCT. And at one point, like this pandemic has put a lot of people on PCT. I'm sure you had a lot of consultations like, what do I do? Gyms are closed and I can't buy food, and do I need PCT? So, yeah. But the guys that took ACG on cycle, their PCT is not successful now, or was not successful. And I get a lot of those guys, man. I get messages every day. I get my libido and my sex drive. And it's because you took ACG on cycle.
So do you notice that the people who take DHEA and pregnenolone, they actually regain testicular size?
No, I mean, the testicular size is still going to shrink because now you're even taking even more hormones, right? Let's say you're a hormonal replacement, 150 milligrams of test, and then you add 25 milligrams of DHEA and 10 milligrams of pregnenolone per week. So that's what, another 200 milligrams per week. That's 300 milligrams, 350 milligrams. It's going to suppress.
So the other thing is that this is such an interesting subject because I've been so curious about this testicular atrophy issue. Because if you've been on gear for people, I don't know if you do this, but people who have been on gear for a couple of years or 3 years, especially if you're on like Trembolone or Nandrolone, you start to notice some testicular atrophy. But the thing is, you think that when you go off cycle, it'll come back. And what many people don't say this on YouTube, they don't say, no, it may never come back. And if it does come back, it's not that it's never going to come back from like the pee, if it's pee. No, it'll come back, but it will never be what it was before if you stay on long enough. And this is
also your age.
Also age, I'm sure. But there's some interesting study I read where they found that it was autopsies of bodybuilders, and they found fibrotic like scar tissue in the testicles. So
that doesn't surprise me.
This is what's making me think that there's an actual damage to the testicle that's sort of permanent in terms of it can still produce sperm if you but it's not going to be as large as before because it's just like getting scar tissue in your liver or somewhere else where it's
or in the prostate, and it has very similar the structure, and they both respond very similarly to hormones. So that's why the prostate grows, and then of course the testicles shrink, but it creates some sort of damage. And I think it also depends on the androgenic compounds that you use, because for me, and this is very unique to me, my testicles don't really shrink.
From the beginning or generally?
Generally.
Wow, you're very lucky then. Maybe it's the
but I've been focusing on my nutrition from day one. So I've never had a micronutrient deficiency. So everything that is associated with semen quality and testicular size and testosterone production, vitamin E, vitamin D3, magnesium, zinc, manganese, carnitine, selenium, those have always been high for my intake. My semen volume doesn't go down. Okay, if I take Trembolone, it goes down. I haven't touched it in 5 years. I'm not going to touch it ever again. It's poison, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And the opinion of many of my clients that prep on testing primo and maybe halotestin at the end. Back to the subject. So when you take very suppressive compounds like Trembolone, Nandrolone, halotestin, you're going to get some shrinkage. But if you stick with the FDA-approved compounds at not too high dosages, and you let the muscle building actually come from training and nutrition, which is something that's a little bit overlooked nowadays, because all the drug info is there, and that's what people gravitate towards nowadays. As long as you focus on your training and nutrition, you don't need so much gear, which means not so much suppression. And if you take testosterone and your intake is stable, and your micronutrient intake is good, I don't think the testicular shrinkage is going to be that severe. I don't think your follicle stimulating hormone shouldn't be that low, not in the gutter. And your semen quality, the motility and the morphology should still be okay, at least enough for fertility.
Mm.
And then you take, but a lot of guys, they go on the steroid forums and they just low test, high train. Yeah,
Well, let's talk about that briefly because that's ridiculous. And you mentioned it before. So just for the audience to know, Steve previously mentioned in a video something I found hilarious and very on point, which is he was saying, these forum guys, which we could talk about the forum guys separately, and we know which forum we're probably talking about specifically, but generally, and not just that forum. I mean, I first heard this low test, high trenbolone cycle from Anabolic Minds in maybe 2007. Long time.
And later in Professional Muscle, and then of course GH15.
Oh, you were at Professional Muscle, so yeah. So all.
Yeah, I was in all the forums. Another big regret. No, I don't regret that as much. It was still a great source of information, but you never knew what these guys looked like.
You become a geek because you're trying their things.
Yeah, and I was under anonymity too because I mean, how long have we been talking openly about PEDs? 5 years, 6 years. And it's probably since Rich Piana and Boston Lloyd and a couple other guys talked, and Tony Hughes talked about it so openly that everybody feels comfortable to talk about it now, because there has been no arrests so far.
Yeah.
So far.
So basically the idea that they were describing originally was this. Take a replacement dose of testosterone so that your sexual function works fine, and take a high dose. I used to see 1,000 milligrams of trenbolone a week. Yeah. And the reason why they would say is the danger with trenbolone, the side effects come from the estrogen. When the estrogen is high from the testosterone, it has some kind of effect together. But this is not true. We find out later. Clearly, the dangers is actually from the androgenic potential of the trenbolone, which is so androgenic. It keeps you awake. Why does it keep you awake? It turns on your sympathetic nervous tone. Your adrenaline is going there, your brain. And that's what's getting you, that's what's making you stronger too. It's not the estrogen messing around with it. I don't know how this thing became popular.
It works, and trenbolone gives everybody results, even if they do everything wrong. So
yeah, but they're gonna feel the side effects. It's not like you're gonna feel much less side effects.
But when you're an impressionable teenager,
exactly,
and you're 20 years old and you're already full with hormones, you add a little bit on top of it, you just came out of puberty, and I was already angry during puberty and already horny during puberty, and now 10 times more. I love it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what it turns into. And I fell for the same thing, Okay, I'll give it a try. Low test, 150 milligrams, 200 per week, 350 trend. Okay, still feel good. 700 trend, still feel good. 1,000 trend, oh, miserable. Throw that in the trash.
Exactly.
And then it's all underground labs, and you don't even know what the potency and the quality is. So if you say 1,000 milligrams, was it really 1,000? I've used trend later on, and I was always able to get away with 225 milligrams per week.
Yeah, the different. Steve always talks about this as well, which is the difference between underground labs and when you get something really high quality, either pharmaceutical or semi-pharmaceutical, like from India or something like that. Sometimes you get. Like the trenbolone in the U.S., I was able to use 200 milligrams a day sometimes, just for an experiment. I was not really trying. I like to experiment, so I tried 200. I even tried 300. Somehow I was able to. No, it's not really 300 though. It's not.
No, probably not. No.
In places like Dubai, you cannot use 300 because you're. I don't know what's going to happen to you. It's at 100 a day, you would be unable to function almost. It's very powerful. They still make the trend heads there. I don't know who makes it. It's not obviously from the original, but it works.
In India, they produce everything for export, and that's where the Third World Pharma, Moldova has another brand, and it's all Third World Pharma, and some of it is sold locally, some of it is exported all over the world, and it's produced under pharmaceutical-like conditions, but since it's made for export, they don't have to adhere to 100% of the rules. And then they use these synthetic carrier oils that are basically just 100% solvent.
Which is what we were going to ask about that too. So Steve, one of them, I think the most unique things about his perspective is he brought up this topic of, carrier oils and solvents, which is such a good point because he sees that his clients or people that he's known that use high solvent oils have high C-reactive proteins.
Yeah.
Which means that the body is under, it comes from the liver, but it means the whole body is under extreme stress.
Right. So systemic inflammation, it's a marker of systemic inflammation. So you can test your cytokines but those usually don't go up from the synthetic carrier oils. So I noticed it with a couple of my clients, I think in Europe, and they were using injectable anadrol, and their C-reactive protein was 50 milligrams per liter, which is 10 times out of range. And when you want to look at health,
15
you're
or 15?
50.
Wow.
That's when you have cancer. That's the level you're going to have.
So you're developing atherosclerosis by the minute.
Yeah, by the minute, right. You're developing cardiovascular disease, just in one cycle. So, and that was in guaiacol or migliol, probably guaiacol was, a couple of years ago. So I saw those numbers. Like, dude, stop doing that. And then I started seeing it over Asia of some of the pharmaceutical brands, even in the stuff that's FDA approved here in Thailand. It's an ethyl oleate or propylene glycol or migliol or guaiacol or I don't know, or maybe it's 100% benzyl benzoate, and and it comes in ampules. It has an anti-counterfeit sticker, and then you can verify it on the website. It's all legit. Wow. And you get a load of oil on your thumb, and you can rub off the ink from a syringe. Now you're injecting that. It's such a strong solvent that it will not only dissolve the ink off a syringe, but also your muscle and your liver and your arteries. And every time I get it, I'm like, man, I got to speak up about this, because after, a few blood works, you try to explain it. And I use synthetic carrier oil myself because, you want to run a little bit of boldenone, you want to run like a 300 milligrams per milliliter testosterone, right? And then I see my own C-reactive protein go, on cycle, it's 5 milligrams per liter at the top. Like, is it because of training? No. Mm-hmm. Off cycle, it's 0.1, or I switch to a pharmaceutical grade, and my C-reactive protein is at the bottom, right, where it should be.
Wow.
And I noticed it's the carrier oil. So I started testing all the carrier oils. So I tested castor oil. It has, in Bayer and Rotex Medica, has 60% castor oil and 30% benzyl benzoate, which is pretty high for a pharmaceutical grade company. Okay, so I run that for a while, check my C-reactive protein. All right, it's 0.1, 0.5. Acceptable, right? I go up to 8 or 7 ampules per week of test, pharmaceutical test. Yeah, so that's a lot of benzyl benzoate. Almost 2 grams a test, only test. Yeah, I'm still a bodybuilder. I still take a little bit more than I should be. C-reactive protein, 1 milligram per liter on pharmaceutical grade testosterone. Yeah, same with Bayer. It's also castor oil. Now I checked the deca-organon, which is made in arachi's oil. I run, 10 ml of that because it's 100 milligrams per milliliter. So I did a deca-only cycle experiment. Arachi's oil, which is pharmaceutical approved, C-reactive protein 12.
Wow. Okay.
Threw it all away. So no, I don't want to risk the cardiovascular disease, especially considering that nandrolone has been linked to left ventricular heart enlargement.
Interesting. So one of the great things about Steve also is the only bodybuilding coach that I know of that talks about C-reactive protein. They usually there's a few other guys. So John Meadows is very knowledgeable in the sense, and he warns people about it. But again, when you're popular here in the States, where there's a lot of underground labs, you can't really speak up too much because you create enemies. And I'm sure I created enemies by speaking up about it as well. That's why I don't mention which brands. I just say all of them. Yeah, sorry. And then there's a few out there that don't cause that problem. And, at least the sources in America, they're way smarter than what they do here in Asia. If they use grapeseed oil or cottonseed oil or sesame oil, or even guys that use MCT or castor oil, they're very smart. They put their testosterone and dectinate in castor oil and cypionate and enanthate in castor oil because it matches the half-life. It's a long oil that remains in the depot, matching the half-life of the ester that's suspended in it. MCT, okay, you put an acetate in there, trenbolone acetate in MCT, because MCT absorbs in a few hours, and acetate converts, and enters the bloodstream and reaches peak concentration within a few hours as well. So if you're a real good source, you match the propionate in the cotton and the grapeseed, the acetates in the MCT, and the undectinates, the enanthate, and the cypionates in castor oil. And I've seen a couple of labs in the States that do that. Beautiful, beautiful results. There's another thing you
mentioned.
Don't
DM me which source, please.
There's another thing you mentioned that's useful to point out also, which is that the higher the milligram content generally in a solution, the more solvent is going to be used. So
Yeah.
if you're injecting 500 milligram tests, which is what you find a lot in the US now, they're 400, 500 milligram. That's now it's going to be painful, and the reason is because of the solvent, and that's the same solvent that's really going to be concerning for your C-reactive protein or your inflammation.
A lot of guys, they use like 10% ethyl oleate and then grapeseed oil, for example. And it's the ethyl oleate that ruins it.
Fantastic.
And some people don't get an adverse reaction from it, and I think it's also because people have different amounts of lipases and esterases to break down the carrier oil, right? So it enters the bloodstream at a different rate. That's why some people get post-injection pain with testosterone propionate, and others don't get it because the ester gets cleaved off with the lipases and the esterases at different rates. And with the carrier oils, you get the same thing. So I've noticed with people that use arachi's oil, they don't get any inflammation. But if I take it, I get inflammation.
Yeah.
And if I take ethyl oleate and propylene glycol, so I'm limited to grape, MCT, cotton, and castor.
Yeah, it depends on those enzymes, like he's saying, that can degrade certain toxic chemicals in your body. Which, by the way, we know, like, we can genetically profile them, but we don't know how they affect certain things, like the solvents. But they're usually, a lot of them are CYP, they're CYP enzymes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, so since we're talking about bodybuilding,
individual response, that's why sometimes I tell people, say, listen, you don't really know until you get your hands dirty. You're going to have to try it and then do your blood work. So source pharmaceuticals, still number one, source a lab where you can do blood work. If you got those two together, you should be pretty safe.
And since you're mentioning blood work, let me ask you, how often do you usually tell your clients or yourself to get blood work?
I like to do it every month, depending on what I'm doing. I'm cruising, so I did
not on a cruise, but for example, when you're when you're starting what you call a blast. I know you like this terminology. When you start a blast, when would you? And it's a new series, for example, a new different kind of compounds. For example, on a client, would you have them? You test it before, and then sometime during, or when you make changes, you test it?
Or during, after, and then some of my clients, for me, a lot of health conscious guys come to me because I talk about health a lot, and it's very valuable to me. So I tend to get the guys that have access to blood work and enjoy doing that every month. So a lot of my clients, they do it every month at the end of the month or whatever they do. They send me the whole list of what I tell them to test, and we review it and we make adjustments based on that. And it makes my job very, very easy, but I also ensure that my client stays healthy because I don't want to have it on my conscience that a client goes to the hospital.
Yeah. Talking about health, I'm moving around through my questions.
No, that's okay.
Bring it up. Can I ask you, have you come across any bodybuilders in your time that have gotten cancer, without naming the people, but have you come across people that have gotten cancer? And if so, what kind of cancers do you find?
I know one guy that had cancer, skin cancer, was an Australian. I don't think that's related to the steroids, but he was using growth hormone. So it developed over the course of like 2 or 3 months. I know 15 bodybuilders that died.
Oh, really?
Thailand. Yeah, from Thailand.
From heart attacks?
Insulin use, heart attacks, over diuretics. A couple of guys that overate, so they do a show and then they just eat whatever for a week.
Repeating syndrome, yeah.
And they gain 40 pounds in a week.
Oh,
from heart attack. Yeah. There's so much edema, there's so much edema. Their face is literally this big. And, I hold a little bit of water retention now, but it's not a big deal, But if your face is if you look like the Michelin Man after a week of competition, you go from shredded to the Michelin Man, the Marshmallow Man. Imagine all that pressure on your heart. 2 guys died like this just from overeating.
Yeah, absolutely. That change in the water content of the heart can't handle it. It's moving different way.
The electrolytes, it's probably, they do the low sodium diet here still, so they do low sodium, then aldactone and Lasix, they completely mess up their electrolytes. Then aldosterone levels go sky high. They eat only MSG and sodium at cheat meals, and then the potassium is completely gone. That's how you get a heart attack, with the edema on top. It's very sad, and every world championships, people went to the hospital. That's why when I saw that, did you see the interview with Wayne DeMilia?
On value payment? I watched the first half, then I started getting aggravated, so I turned it.
It does get a little bit under the skin, yeah. But I understand where he's coming from, because I've seen so many horror stories backstage where people completely cramp up, and you ask them, "Dude, what did you do?" Yeah, and they're Arabs or Indians, and they barely speak any English. Tell them, well, what did you take? Lasix, Aldactone, and Dramamine or something, exciting. And then they use the injectable magnesium, and completely messed up. And I asked them, have these drink some coconut water, and have some tonic water, which I always bring with me just in case, because I know these guys are going to mess up. So I got, coconut water, a Gatorade, and tonic water, with the quinine to stop the cramping. And these guys refuse to drink it.
Well, because they're still competing?
Because they're still competing. They want to stay shredded. So
I'll tell you something. You bring up such an interesting point that nobody ever talks about, or I haven't heard before, which is Indian and Arab bodybuilders. The willingness to do anything to get on that stage and look these are people that run trend all year, real trend, like strong trend. I've noticed recently Indian bodybuilders, but I knew about Arabs before. They'll do anything, and I don't know what the mentality is. They don't realize how dangerous. Tell me.
The pay is very high, so they're part of the national team. And when they win a gold medal, they're perceived as a hero when they go back. I mean, did you see when Hadi Choopan went back to Iran? He's a hero, third place at the Olympia. And I don't blame those guys, because it's a huge accomplishment, considering that he was blocked from entering. The first Iranian that really does well at the Olympia. Yeah, he's perceived a hero. But all those guys that go to the World Championships, they're amateurs, but they get paid by the government when they win. And they get paid a lot. They get paid a lot. The Indians too. They got 4 teams: the railroad, the electricity company, a couple other teams, and they get paid. I didn't
know that. They're sponsored by big companies.
My wife too. Yeah, my wife got paid from the Thai government, 1 million baht for every win. That's $33,000.
Wow, this is to me.
Yeah, and then the bikini girls at the Olympia, they made less.
Really? Okay. That's so interesting. That's why they don't want to turn pro. They say, huh?
Oh, right. My wife was like, why should I turn pro? And when I get my flight, my entry fee, my hotel, food money, the money for the bikini, prize money. And she was always top 3. So she was always making money. And then the Thai government would pay that, because she represents Thailand. She gets to wear the flag. She gets to be in the newspaper. There's an interview. You represent the country as an athlete. It's very rewarding. And it comes with a couple strings. You're not allowed to drink alcohol on social media because you're an athlete in Thailand, so you shouldn't be drinking wine publicly, right? Okay, small restrictions, but it's a great honor to do that. Same as being in the military, or because you represent or defend the country, and it's in many Asian countries like that. And then some people go to the extreme. And my wife was very lucky that I was able to hey, let's take it easy. Because after 5 years of competing, we still want to have a baby, and I still want you to be a woman, not a boyfriend.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
No side effects on her part. She was just trained her ass off, and
And how you recognize these guys are going overboard? I'm mostly talking about the men, but on Instagram you'll find that the Indian bodybuilders and the Arab bodybuilders or the Persian bodybuilders, often what you'll notice is they're always round. The shoulders, everything is very round all the time, all year, and they're extremely low body fat all year.
Yep.
So this is obviously basically the competition cycle that you would take for a competition in the West year round.
Yeah. Single digit HDLs, total cholesterol 300, liver enzymes over 150 year round, and that can be mitigated. I've seen the blood work.
Really? You've seen 300 the total cholesterol?
The health guy in Asia, at one point, they're going to come to me.
Wow. So you see people with 300 total cholesterol?
I've had 400, but that was in a carnivore diet. That's a different story.
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
But you're eating like zero cholesterol. You're eating all fish and lean chicken and chicken and rice and all the clean carbs. Cholesterol 300, LDL 250. HDL 4. 4.
Wow.
Triglycerides 200. And I'm like, how much growth hormone you take? Oh yeah, brother, it's 8 units per day, and slow down.
Yeah.
Who's your coach? Oh, this guy's. How does he look? Shows a picture. So this guy doesn't work out. Why would you listen to this guy?
Just for the audience to realize what Steve is saying is 300 total cholesterol is classified. It's what doctors classify in the U.S. as hypercholesterolemia, which is they actually call it familial hypercholesterolemia because they would never expect it could happen from drugs. So they think that you have a disease in your family that's genetic. And in the U.S., if you have 300 total cholesterol, your insurance will actually pay for you to get a PCSK9 inhibitor, which costs $5. Yeah, so you could, if you could mess up your cholesterol that much, you'll get on a PCSK9 inhibitor for life, which costs $5,500 a year to pay cash now. These are like supposed to be the future drugs of this, like better than statins.
And healthcare ramifications are probably going to be less than the $5,000 they have to spend on the medication, which is significantly overpriced because I can get that hair for probably for $200.
PCSK9 inhibitor?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I
they're
know
very new. I wonder if they're made yet in the third world. Because if they are,
but I know that all the medications, when some of my American clients, they tell me what they pay for a blood pressure medication. I'm like, dude, it costs pennies here. It costs like 1 cent, 2 cents, and I can get it at the pharmacy.
I would really like to know if you could research the PCSK9.
Send me exactly what it is.
I would love to know. Thank you. So you're so helpful. Thank you.
I won't be ordering anything though. Just 100% disclaimer. No
just knowledge. Just knowledge. No.
Please, guys, stop.
Of course not. I don't even take these things anyway. But the point is, let's talk a bit about nutrition because we skipped over that, and you have such an interesting nutrition story. One of the unique things about Steve is that, first of all, he's very, as you could tell already, very into nutrition, particularly into micronutrients, but also he's tried different kinds of eating styles, I think maybe experimental. I want to know, how did you get on the carnivore diet in the first place? What was the motivation?
I was doing an elimination diet because I always had some digestive issues. So before traveling, I was fine. I could eat anything. And then I traveled for a year. And then after China, I hate to single you guys out, but that's where it happened. I couldn't digest anything anymore. And I was struggling. Yeah, I was struggling with that for years. And vegetables and certain spices and, the FODMAP stuff, I just can't digest it anymore. So my whole gut microbiome changed, and I tried everything. I tried to repopulate it. I tried to kill it with antibiotics. I tried to fast. And so at one point I got sick of it. It's like, okay, I'm going to do one food item at a time, follow a lengthy elimination diet, which I published in IG. It's like a whole list of foods and supplements and drugs. And so I just went through everything to assess what I can eat and what I can't eat. Should have done a food allergy test. Would have probably sped up the process, but I like to get, the hands-on experience in. So I noticed that all the vegetables, not good. Some of the nuts, not good. Okay, some of the spices, not good. And I was like, yeah, let's just do a carnivore diet. Reset the inflammation in my intestinal tract. So I did a carnivore diet. But I also wanted to ramp up my calories and get it to like the highest possible calories so I can start cutting. So I started 2,500 calories, beef, salmon, a little bit of oil from the beef tallow, that's like from the skin basically and the fat. And it's like still an animal product. And then I'm ramping up my calories. What can I add? More salmon, a little bit more greasier beef, bone marrow, butter, cheese. All this is saturated with cholesterol, and you're not having any fiber to bind to it and detox it out of the body. So I was on hormone replacement generously for a bodybuilder, 250 tests. I don't think I took DHEA at that time. I think I just took 250 tests a week and a little bit of aromasin to control the estrogen. So after 28 days on the carnivore diet, going from 2,500 to 5,000 calories, strong as an ox, obviously, eating butter with every meal. My total cholesterol was 400.
Wow.
All the carnivore proponents are going to say, who cares about cholesterol? As long as your markers are fine, you don't risk cardiovascular disease. Yeah, but slow down. I got cardiovascular disease in my family. So I got to be careful. I got to take the precautions so that doesn't happen to me when I'm 60 years old when cardiovascular disease occurs in my family. Because I'm genetically inclined to get that to happen. So I'm not going to take a chance. And I brought my, lipids down with a little bit of Nolvadex and switching all the beef out for fish, adding a little bit of chia seeds for fiber and more omega-3. So now I'm mostly on eggs, chia seeds, fish, and some vegetables and some fruit. All my markers are basically fine considering I'm on hormones.
See, once you know that your family has cardiovascular disease in it, then you really you don't really need to know the genes. But if you're curious, if you ever do your 23andMe, I won't do the full analysis, but for free, I'll tell you the most important cardiovascular ones, which are the Ldl receptor, because some people have it like me. I have an Ldl receptor that's overactive, so I get rid of LDL because it's not overactive. Sorry, it's not very responsive, the LDL receptor, or maybe it's overactive. I don't know, but the point is, I get rid of LDL very easily. Then the PCSK9 gene, and then there's like one called APOC3, which is very important, and then one very important one is called CETP, CETP, which works on reverse cholesterol transport. And then, of course, the most important one is the ApoE variants. So you may have an ApoE4. Does anyone in your family have Alzheimer's?
No.
Okay, hopefully you don't have that one, but it won't help anyway. If you already know, then you know. And this is the thing.
I would want to do the test, and I'll probably set up a consultation with you because you're the most knowledgeable guy in this field about it. So you have the expertise when it comes to the fitness. So I'll definitely contact you first thing.
No, it's for free, of course. I appreciate you spending your time with me. I'll just give you some tips, and all you need to do is go on 23andMe and buy the family and ancestry and health package. And when you get it and everything's done, just let me know and I'll go through it.
They're not going to create clone soldiers of me, right?
They may. That may happen. So who knows? But it's the risk you have to. And don't do any big crimes in the U.S. if you're going to do that, because I'm pretty sure.
No. If my clones do it, it's okay.
Exactly.
It wasn't me.
So, but you bring up an important point, which is that the carnivore guys and these. So, by the way, just for our viewers, most of our viewers are listening probably into either cognitive enhancement, or they're into bodybuilding, or they're into PEDs. They might not know that there's a whole other world out there, which is these nutrition fanatics. So there's these low carb, high fat community. They call them LCHF. They're almost like a religion. Then there's the vegan.
Most of them are. They're all fanatics. Vegan, carnivore, paleo. It's like
They love to argue on Twitter. That's all they do all day.
Yeah, that's why I made that video about negativity. If you're arguing all the time, you didn't accomplish anything. Just try to enhance yourself a little bit more in the meantime. Not PD wise, but intellectually.
So the thing about these guys is that you tell them, hey, my cholesterol is my LDL is 200. I've been on the ketogenic diet. What should I do? They say, no. If your triglycerides are fine and you don't have abdominal fat, that's what's really tied to cardiovascular disease, that metabolic syndrome. If you don't have that, that's fine. Your LDL is there, but it's not going to be it. They basically try to prove using all of the epidemiological studies that you can't put a clear line between LDL cholesterol and not. Like they say the LDL cholesterol can be high, but they say heart attacks are not clearly tied to that. But the thing is, we know chemically that the LDL, as you always say in your videos, that the LDL particle, it gets oxidized, it gets lodged in and that causes the plaque. And clearly your heart is going to have trouble pumping if your artery is filled with plaque.
Like this one.
Well, how does this make sense, And
in bodybuilding, we take some vasoconstrictors, pre-workouts. You're risking it even more. And all those fat diets, where are the long-term studies on a decent amount of people, not 10 people, not 10 people. That's not a study. I want to see a study over 10 years, over 1,000 people. So if 10 people drop dead, okay, we've got a 1% deviation. It's we don't know.
Well, those guys will always bring up the Inuits and the Maasai because they say the Inuits, they ate almost all fat and they live fine. But actually, this is not really true. There's a wonderful article by someone from Northern Europe as well. I don't know which country it's from. Could be Denmark or something. But
you went there, right? And you studied those Inuits and
one of the ones where they have
cardiovascular disease, but they only lived to 40 years old.
Yes. Well, they didn't die of heart attacks, but they got intracranial hemorrhages, and they didn't live that long. That's the point.
So if you get, cardiovascular disease when you're 70, but you're studying a group that doesn't even make it past 50.
Exactly. And the other thing is that they have They had a lot of atherosclerosis. There's one study where where they did the postmortems. It's just one study, but on a lot of people, they had a lot of atherosclerosis, and also the Messiah had a lot of atherosclerosis as well. So it's not like this is not causing atherosclerosis.
Right. And then you don't even combine that with pollution, recreational alcohol, cigarettes, PED use, which
Inflammation.
all compounds it. So, I think like we know a lot about health, right, and how to longevity, but I think it's still at its infancy.
Yes.
Where every week something new comes that invalidates an old study or enforces it or tries to make it a little bit different. And you'll see within the supplements, like the supplements just keep coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. And then there's one study to support it, another study that doesn't support, doesn't do anything, and then 3 more studies that support it. That's why I just say, okay, you read a couple studies, you make up your mind, and then you decide to take it or not. And then you go by how you feel or what impact it has on your life or blood work or whatever. So I've tried so many things, and some things worked for me, some things didn't work for me, and but I still add it to my portfolio of knowledge. If somebody asks me, what do you think about this? Well, it didn't work for me, but it might still work for you because the science is clearly there.
Exactly.
It's
Very true.
no, I don't want to play around with my health, and that's why you go through your experimental phase where you try to test all these PEDs and stupid high doses of trenbolone. All right, you learn the hard way. You see your blood pressure go up, and then anger and night sweats, and all right, good. My bad. I did it to myself. And then you take it off your list of things you want to take in the future, and then you proceed that way. So that's why I'm only on Test, Primo, and Anavar now, and GH and insulin, and a ton of health supplements because I go by blood work and by how I feel.
Yeah,
and
to
I
the
still
end of my
with this handicap.
to the end of my androgen use, I was also using just like you, Primo and Test only, and I was using
Are you still using anything now, or are you completely natty?
No, I don't even lift weights, and I haven't been using anything for almost like 1.5 years or 2 years.
Right. How was your post-psychotherapy? Did it go or recovered 100%?
It took a year and well, first of all, actually, my sperm parameters, which I tested pretty quick after stopping, were actually somewhat okay. The motility was a bit low. Everything else was fine within 2 months using low dose HCG. But then what I did was I tried to really repair myself. So I realized that most of these protocols were just meant to make someone get a baby quickly, whereas I wanted to. So basically, I went on like over a year protocol. And now I feel really wonderful. But I'm still younger. I'm a bit younger than you. I'm 31, turning 32. So.
And how long were you on hormones? How many years?
Well, I was on hormones for about 2.5 years continuously, between like 25 and 28 or something. And then when I was younger, when I was like 21 or 22, I did a couple of cycles just experimentally. Right. Basically, I used
in time on, time off sort of approach.
Well, no, it was sort of like I got distracted from powerlifting because of school. So when I went to school, I gave it all up, and I was one of the forum guys when I was 15. So I knew all about the stuff, but I didn't try any of it. So when I was 20, I said I want to go try it finally, and then I got distracted again. It belongs to it.
It's okay. It's life, right? I mean, you get more things going on than just fitness and bodybuilding and PD. So otherwise, everybody would be meatheads and I'd be pros because it's all encompassing.
My thing was I was always most interested in making myself better, and it didn't just go into the weightlifting and stuff like that, but it went in all kinds of different directions. So I was, but anyway, not about
multifaceted, right? You can enrich yourself in many different things.
In many different things, and what I found to be the most powerful way is through the mental side, because as someone who I had. Not depression, but anxiety, like you said, social anxiety, different kinds of things in my life. I discovered that I could manipulate my mental well-being in a way that really changed the way I was living. I mean,
just some conditioning, some nutrition, and then some enforcing of your own ability. Exactly. And that takes a while. You need to build up that confidence. And I think that also comes with age, because when you're a little bit younger and maybe an outsider a little bit, you're not part of the popular people, it takes a little bit longer to build up that confidence.
Well, yeah, also, but it can be done chemically, just like with bodybuilding, how we do
Yeah.
chemically. I got more into that chemical side of it,
Mhm.
which is really interesting. But let me not get too far aside. So I wanted to ask you: you tried the carnivore diet as an
Yeah.
elimination diet, which is the best reason to use it. Obviously, I always
Mhm.
tell people if you have these kind of allergies, to do
Yeah.
exactly what you did, which is take it seriously and try it yourself. And I don't even
Mhm.
think the food allergy test that accurate. I think it's better to try
Right. Well, at
physically.
least you get some experience, right? And you instead of getting a list that said, I can't eat these for 2 months and 3 months and 2 weeks, and just stop everything. Just
Yeah.
add chicken. Okay,
Yeah.
2 days you're good. Beef, and it's super monotonous,
Yeah.
but that's how you enrich your knowledge base,
But how
with
did
your
you go from the elimination diet to the ketogenic diet, which this is fascinates me. So you're
yeah
one of the only coaches that does a ketogenic diet, but is a real bodybuilder, takes
yeah.
lifts, like he says, very intensely. One of the most important things to you is lifting hard in the gym. How do you manage that all together? Like, I actually know, I've watched enough videos now to know what you eat, sort of, but I want you to tell the
Mhm.
listeners, like, what,
Yeah,
how,
you've been digging. I saw in the
yeah,
question. So I've been doing keto since forever, probably over 14 years. Yeah, when Dave Palumbo was still part of the muscular development, he was on the forum and he posted his ketogenic diet. So I copied that and then I took away all the shakes and replaced it with real meals. Yeah, because I'm like supplements. Where's the micronutrients? So I had 5 meals and I tried to kind of forget I had a ketogenic diet or modified Dave Palumbo ketogenic diet, and I felt great. I was alert. I was sharp. My digestion was good. This is before I traveled. Also, it was still natural, no drugs, nothing to mess up the digestion drug wise. So I felt great. I felt focused and I felt energetic. Okay, I lost some strength in the gym by lowering my rep range, which Dave Palumbo advised. You don't do 12 reps anymore because you don't have the glycogen. You go to 6 or 8 reps. So I stayed between 6 to 9, and then after a while, I just went to 4 to 6, which makes it heavy. And then people make fun of you, like, "Oh, it's heavy, but you only do 6 reps." It's working. So I've been doing that for years, and that's how I was able to progress a decent amount, a little bit more on top of my, closer to the natural potential. And then when I wanted to get my hands dirty with PEDs, I just kept doing ketogenic diets and added a little bit of testosterone and, clenbuterol and winstrol towards the end.
wow,
So I've
that's,
been doing ketogenic for years. Yeah, I've been doing it for years. And I never recommend it to my clients.
no,
No,
why not?
because it's hard to come back from. It's a
Oh,
lifestyle thing. So, you get very, very insulin sensitive on the muscle cell, but also on the fat cells. And as soon as you start incorporating carbohydrates back, most people do ketogenic diets for a certain period of time to get shredded, right? And then they want to go back to the carbs, and you add a little bit of carbs, it's like cocaine.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh, a little bit of rice. I need more rice. I need more rice. And then it turns to cookies, and people can't control themselves.
Because
So,
your insulin sensitivity is so good at that point that your cortisol just over responds. I
blood
mean, not
sugar level.
cortisol, your insulin. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And,
Yeah.
and the blood sugar levels just go into a roller coaster. You feel good, and it literally with a soda can, for example, you drink the soda can, you feel great, you have energy, and then you crash. You need another soda, but if you get that from potato or oatmeal with a super low glycemic index. So for me, it's a lifestyle thing. I just eat ketogenic the whole time, and I have a little bit of fruit around the workout just to put a little bit of glycogen back in me into the liver, and that helps with workout intensity. I know I saw a video of yours that you're against fruit, or fructose at least.
Fructose. I eat fruits every day. I eat.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, the people misunderstood. I was talking about the molecule fructose just as a
right,
and I know you know all about this and you've researched a
right.
little
So I was
bit.
wondering if you meant the high fructose corn syrup in soda cans, or the fruit in the
I mean, like
fructose.
any kind of liquid fruit. So if
Yeah.
it's an orange juice, even then we've seen studies that will show that, for example, orange juice or juices can
Mhm.
promote very quickly. Because what happens is when it's a juice, so for example, colorectal cancer, when it's a juice, it passes very quickly into the colon. But if you
Mhm.
eat it as an actual fruit, it won't get
Right.
to the colon without being digested
Right.
beforehand.
You have
So
the micronutrients and all the stuff, and the pulp is actual pulp and not
exactly.
cocoa
So
fiber.
basically, really, all I really mean is that the fructose molecule, when it's by itself, is dangerous
Mm.
in some ways, and that
Too
you
refined.
don't really want to take it in a processed form.
Right. It's too
But
refined. Use sugar and oils. I'm not a big fan of oils. I try to put everybody on real real avocado, real almonds, real olives, not the oil versions,
I
because
agree.
it's just too fast and your triglycerides go sky high.
And
Plus,
also, you're not getting the nutrients that it's a process
right,
part of the.
maybe a little bit of vitamin E. That's
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Exactly.
That's it. But the rest of the micro, I mean, look at chia seeds and flax seeds and quinoa. I mean, it's loaded. It's
Yeah.
loaded with micronutrients, and it's especially important when you start to lower your calories, and limiting food sources, that your micronutrient intake stays sky high, because your body is a little bit stupid. It doesn't know what it is hunger for. Is it hungry for calories, selenium, sodium, water? It cries like a baby. It's like, feed me, but feed it what? So at least if your micronutrient intake is way over the recommended dose, and it's not to toxicity levels, obviously, but it's sufficient, for bodily function. And as a bodybuilder, you expend way more energy and calories, and you require more nutrients. As long as those nutrients are high, you can reduce the calories significantly, and don't get too hungry, and don't lose any, bodily functions.
Very true. And I know you're a really big proponent of chia seeds as well. I totally agree with you. The other thing, though, is that what I try to do also, because obviously I'm not interested in weightlifting and stuff. I'm trying to just live longer, because
Right.
I hate death. I hate death. So this is my big
It's
problem.
scary, I know. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're 1/3 the way, right? So we're like,
I'm
one third
refusing.
away, which is still double. I still have double left of what I spent so far, but I don't want it to end.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what motivates me. But so what I
Right.
try to do sometimes, though, is I try to study, like, we don't really know how many of these fruits and vegetables really help our health, like molecularly. We don't actually know. But what we do know is we have some epidemiological studies which will show, like, for example, people eat a lot of berries or blueberries. We know something about the phytochemicals in them, but we don't really know the exact mechanisms, but we know it is healthy. So that's what I do. So instead of just thinking of the micronutrients, I also look at those phytochemicals. So
Right.
because for example, they'll produce a response in our body that's they call it a hormetic stress, where you'll get glutathione goes up when
The
you.
antioxidants and the antimicrobial benefits of certain foods, yeah, and you don't find that on the nutrition data website.
Exactly.
That's only selenium and all the minerals and vitamins.
Exactly.
But the phytonutrients and the the antioxidants, they don't list it. They have a website with the ORAC values, but that's just a number. So you'll see the blueberries at the top, and then all the other.
What's the ORAC? I mean, what does it mean? Is it like an antioxidant measure or something?
Yeah, antioxidant ratio value.
Okay. Well, no, that's not going to be accurate. Trust me.
It's just a number, right?
No. How are you going to make a number? There's so many different kinds, and they do different things in the body.
I think they tested them all against some oxidants, some free radical.
Oh, but it's not just free radicals. It's other stuff. Some of them have different organ specific effects, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's not exactly like just another novel way to make it interesting, because the micronutrients are not the full story. And remember, a banana from or an apple from the farm is going to be different than an apple homegrown, because one is full with pesticides and plucked, before it's ripe, and then artificially ripened with some enzyme, compared to the guy that falls from the tree because it's ready. When it falls, it's ready. You can eat it because it's ripe.
Very true. And also depending on the soil, right? Because you're interested in micronutrients like minerals. So it's like selenium, for example.
Yeah,
the plant might not need selenium, so it's going to depend on how much it gets from the actual soil. So if you're in a certain, and we don't know which soil has what, so we just guess,
Right, we just guess. But I think in our field, you make the most informed decision that you can, and it's a positive contribution to your health. And those opinions might change as you learn more, of course. But we're all trying to improve our lives the best way we know how. And the only limiting factor is basically finance, because eating healthy is expensive.
Yeah. The best thing for this is like every fact has a half-life. This is pretty popular saying in this community, because something one year, and then really the whole world changes in scientific research, and you take it on board. You don't say, I'm going to stick to my old opinion because I was right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with cardiovascular disease, that's been proven. Oh yeah, saturated fat. All right, sugar. Oh, it's cholesterol. Make up your mind.
Exactly. That's a whole. When I made that fructose video, I got a lot of antagonism on the comments. Like people like,
Yeah.
you should debate Lane Norton. I'm like, wait a minute, why would I debate? Debate doesn't make sense. So first of all, my videos have citations all throughout it. I spend a lot of time putting really accurate citations. So if you have a question about it, you can just pause the video and go Google it. But second of all, look, this is my opinion from what I've read, and someone else has a different opinion about what he's read. If you go into a debate, this means you're trying to prove the other person wrong. I would be happy if someone tells me, I know something you don't know. Here's the article. Read this. I'll learn. Maybe I'll change my opinion. But you'd ask me to go debate. I say this for vegan gains, children, and debate class in high school. We're not this is not the world we live in. But people like to argue.
Well, that's YouTube. I mean, you can take Derek from More Plates, More Dates as an example. He doesn't argue, but his videos where there's a little bit of the finger pointing, like, oh, this guy is probably taking this. And they're very smart, and they're not negative videos, but it's speculatory, right? Yeah. What he's doing. Those get 1 million views. And then the intelligent content that actually could help people problem solve and prevent a lot of side effects, 10,000, 20,000 views. I think people feed off the drama, which is a shame.
Well, that's the thing. You bring up an important point, which is we were going to talk about this. I was going to ask you, like, when you're growing your channel, I see you're doing new things with your channel now. You have like different series called like Vigorous Nutrition or Vigorous.
Yeah, just topic based, because otherwise it's going to turn to a drug channel, and that's not the only thing I'm about,
No, but also I think it's a great idea, because I think people like to see those kind of things in a row. But we were talking about Greg Doucette briefly, and Greg Doucette, he started his first few videos that I in the last couple of years were about PEDs. They were about SARMs. Right. To be honest, I don't know Greg, but I prefer your perspective. I find it much more sophisticated and much more. It seems to. I mean, it's night and day to me. But he got his following originally from those kind of people.
Yeah.
But then he started making, now it's actually, they're review videos about like random people I don't even know. They're not even about they're just women. They're women, different kinds of women he talks about. But it's smart, because that's how you grow the channel. Because what he does, I think, I'm just starting to understand this now. I'm very backwards, but I think he comments on people with very big channels.
And then you get you go back a couple times and you talk about somebody with 1 million followers, and then all their followers will come to you. It's all marketing, but it's based on negative energy.
I think that's the thing that scares me, the negative energy, because then you're going to attract a lot of people who are sort of negative. Do you want that in your following?
I don't want any negativity in my life. That's why I make this video. So you talk shit, you're out. I don't want your views. Because I don't want it, because I work very hard to have as little negativity in my life as well. And maybe when I'm popular enough, Greg Doucette is going to take a snippet of this and then make his video zero. Make a video about it. All right, whatever happens, happens. But I just try to keep it positive and try to enrich people's lives with what I've learned. And I know you're doing the same thing. You try everything you've learned, you just try to give it. So it's basically the information you've learned that you wish you would have had when you get started. And then you try to help people that way. And if people want a little bit more advice, okay, give me a call. It's going to cost a little bit of money, but at least you get it personalized. And and then YouTube you can still make money from the views, but you'll need a lot of money. You'll need a lot of views.
Yeah.
And nowadays in the fitness industry, that's based on negativity.
Unfortunately,
I think that's a shame.
I don't think anyone is immune from that negativity, because
no.
Let's not talk about Greg specifically, but anyone who's doing that, look, those comments, you might not read them, but they're going to get you somehow.
Yeah.
And you can't, human beings are not built to live with that kind of negative energy. I mean, we know people are living with anxiety more and more nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that's healthy for you.
No, and when you start attacking people, you don't know how they are. I mean, we can take Luke Sandow everybody thought he was the most happy-go-lucky guy, and it really hit me hard that he took his own life. But imagine if Craig did a video about Luke.
Yeah.
Or another YouTuber, I mean, there's many of these guys, right, that finger pointing and under the sake of entertainment. Imagine if that happened.
Well, the most impressive one is actually Kenny KO. That's I came across his channel a few days ago, and this guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's very aggressive. I saw his old videos. He was just like outing people for lying about their drugs, but now it's like it's it's a drama channel. I don't know how he must be immune. Right? He must be the only one.
But
But
that's what people want to see. So, I mean, you're feeding into the audience, and the more the audience wants to see it. So it's like a two-way street, right? You're building your audience with this finger-pointing content, and then it grows and grows and grows because a lot of people enjoy that. That's why Jerry Springer and all those, those reality shows got so popular, right? It's just drama. That's why the Discovery Channel turned into a docudrama channel.
yeah,
Before it was intelligent nature documentaries. Now it's whatever. I don't even watch it.
yeah,
That's what people want to watch. So you feed into that. Or you can decide, so listen, I'm going to be only intelligent content. And a lot of people, it's going to be like a little bit maybe too advanced for them. But maybe 5 years from now, they'll appreciate it. And then when 5 years from now, hopefully you're still in business, and then they'll sign up for a service. The rates might be way too high because your popularity increased, but at least I feel that I'm making a positive contribution to people's health. Maybe it's not 100% responsible to talk about PEDs 100%, and how to take them and what to do. But I have my best intentions to prevent people from making mistakes.
No, it looks to me very responsible because
I try to. It's at least the information I wish I would have had. And okay, we can joke a little bit, about taking 1,000 milligrams of tren, but it was a mistake, and I hope everybody understands that it was not a good idea. So
not at all.
You don't have to make that mistake as well.
Not at all. Exactly.
And maybe that means your following is 10,000 people, and maybe it's not going to be popular. But hey, I'll be able to go out on the street and be by myself and not recognized 24/7. And you'll have a positive relation with anybody you meet. Because, if Greg goes or Kenny KO goes to an expo, there'll be so many people that are pissed off that they can't even go. And that's what happened with when I was in Dubai. What was his name? Like a YouTuber, the small guy, Louis Marco. Louis Marco was there, and William Bonek was also there.
Yeah, I saw that. Was very bad exchange.
and I don't even know what happened because I met Louis Marco. I said, dude, I don't know what you talked about, but I've never seen William Bonek that angry.
Yeah.
And I used to train at the same gym, so I was like, well, what did you do? I mean, he completely disappeared after that because he got a dose of reality. He said, listen, you can't talk too bad about people because at one point they're going to confront you. That's the real world.
Well, they might not attack you, but you just feel the hatred, and that takes away from your soul. It brings you down. Why bring yourself down? I think what Derek does, I think what... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, some people only care about, they don't uphold your values. That's why humanity is so diverse. Some people only care about their business and their views. So that's life. What can you do?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, that kind of living, I mean, even living driven by finances and stuff, it will ruin your soul, and you will end up depressed. There's so many rich people that I know that are depressed. You would think he has everything, and he has nothing. He doesn't have honor. He doesn't have a wife that loves him. He doesn't have friends that he really knows why they like him. Maybe they want his money. I mean, it never leads to happiness. It may seem like it does.
And then you get a little bit of critique and it even worse. But I'm going to be honest, I'm driven by finances also. For a reason, I want to retire before I have kids.
Yeah, but you're doing something you love. You're not working, for example, like I was in private equity or your old job in Amsterdam and staying in that thing you hate just to get money. You know what I mean?
80 hours per week, and just you look at your savings, you're like, oh, that's great. And then the next day you go to your job, you have to wear the tie, and it's constricting you. And the watch, it's like the little dial, it's pressing against your wrist. At the end of the day, you got a little indentation. Why the hell am I doing this to myself?
That's what I'm talking about. That leads nowhere.
I'm still financially motivated, but it's also because, with popularity, a lot of people come to you for advice. And I would love to help everybody, and I'm sure you would do the same thing. I see you still comment to everybody, but I can't do it anymore.
I have to stop it.
Right, but it's so much time, and it turns into a charity almost because it's hours per day. And I used to do the same thing on Instagram, answer every messages in detail, because I generally want to help people. And now I get 50 messages per day with, all sorts of questions. And I just tell them, sorry, guys, I got to restrict it because otherwise I'm working 8 hours per day for free. And and then my wife was like, hey, mortgage is up.
You made a great video about this recently, which was completely true. First of all, if you have more and more clients coming, you simply have less time. So you have to charge higher. That's the only way it works, right? But second of all, like sometimes I don't have many followers, but sometimes people ask me questions and I give a lot of, general advice. But sometimes, first of all, sometimes the question is very specific. It's like, I can't ask you a question responsibly unless I know the story. So like you have to make a consult and tell me what your story is. The details, and second of all, sometimes I do, if I can answer, I do answer, but then I feel bad after. I'm like, why didn't he care to pay for a half-hour consult or something like that? I put all the information for free. I mean, if you respect the information, this is what I would do personally. It's not, my consult is very cheap, so it's like, why wouldn't you do that?
Well, they don't. That's the problem. And since a lot of that's why I use the example of some of the other coaches trying to build a following. They give everything away for free. You shouldn't. And don't answer all the questions all the time because it's a lot of your time. But now people expect it to be for free.
It's a very
I just started the paper question service, PPQ, not the supplement, but it's an abbreviation. $10.50. I announced it on YouTube and Instagram. Within 24 hours, guess how many emails I got?
How many?
65 questions. So the whole day. Okay, so I undervalued it a little bit, but that's okay because it's like the first group of people that want to jump on board, right? So let's just run it to the end of the month and see if that pace stays up. 65 goes to 10 to 2 to 0. Basically, everybody got their questioning, right? And now people still ask me questions, but I said, listen, if you want a truthful and discreet answer, it's PPQ service.
I have the same service, but they still they actually like it's on my website. I've had it from the beginning, but I had it for Amin also. But people will not. They'll actually send me a comment on the website asking a question, but they won't buy this $10 or $15 or $20 whatever.
No, because they'll start off with a compliment. Great.
Yeah.
I understand what you're doing. And then they'll get like a laundry list of questions. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I get too many. This is a service. If you want it personalized, compensate me a little bit for my time. Yeah. And then 65 questions, it's over $650, right? It took me a whole day to answer everybody in detail. And then I copy some of the articles that I have in the Facebook group just as reference, because those emails are long. I put my effort in. It's not like, yes, you can take all this trend, go, good luck, and send the next email out. No, I give them, a truthful answer that takes more than 15 minutes to answer. That's why I probably undervalued the service. But I thought, $10.50, nobody's going to take this. It's going to reduce all the DMs by a decent amount. But it didn't.
Well, that's so.
I was laughing my butt off, to my wife. I woke up with 30 emails, and they just keep coming in.
Well, at least they paid for them, and it's not the random emails.
It's just the first batch, and then of course, the people that still send you in that just want a freebie. Okay, I send them, the information of the service, and then 9 out of 10 you don't hear back from them. But that gives me time to focus on my clients and the leftover time that I have to play video games or go out with my wife.
Exactly.
My time.
So I wanted to ask you probably just one last brief question about androgens, because guys, anyone watching this, if you go to Steve's channel, you'll find, it's a host of information about androgens. He really, I know your specialty is actually nutrition, but there's a lot of, because of what people ask him, he has a lot of, detailed, and it's a question and answer. So you can get detailed answers on every compound you can think of, and very coherent. I tell you myself, I co-sign a lot of it, especially his views on dosages, and except we have a slightly different opinion on how frequent GH should be used or stuff like that. But other than that, honestly, I agree with almost everything that I see there. So you guys can go there. I won't ask to spend too much time on it. Briefly, I just wanted to comment on the estrogen. I know your view, but maybe you could tell the audience, because you have an advanced view of how to use aromatase inhibitors, which is you prefer to use aromasin, which is a suicide inhibitor.
Yeah.
And also you try not to bring your estrogen too low because of the cardioprotective effects and the neuroprotective, which you always mention.
Right. So besides the neuroprotective and the cardiovascular protective effect, it also helps with SHBG and HDL, keeps that moderately high. And of course, steroids, by definition, you're going to lower your HCG and HDL levels. Now, I think everybody understands the importance of HDL, but a lot of people still think that HCG is the devil and that you need your free testosterone as high as possible. And I would tell everybody to research the sex hormone binding globulin receptor complex, and so they can understand that sex hormone binding globulin actually delivers sex hormones to tissue. Mm-hmm. And this is the forum information that's been regurgitated over and over again. Sex hormone binding globulin needs to be low so you have more free tests, so that erection is, diamond rock hard. Okay, that's great, but you lose out on some of the benefits of delivering hormones to tissue and then activating the androgen receptor through another pathway. And it's the same that estrogen does. They activate the estrogen receptor, enhance the effects of the androgen receptor. Now you get more bang for your buck, milligram for milligram of the testosterone, trenbolone, primobolan, whatever you're injecting. So you don't need so much. So by keeping your estrogen at the top of the range or a little bit over, I think you can safely go up to 100 picograms per milliliter. That's probably where I'm at now. I'm on 250 test DHEA and pregnenolone, no AI. And I'm using dianyl methane and calcium deglucarate. And then everybody's going to say, yeah, but calcium deglucarate also metabolizes testosterone out. Yeah, but it does after. Glucuronation happens after it's been attached to the androgen receptor, not before.
Very interesting. So you keep a high ratio of estrogen to testosterone then?
Yeah.
More, yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I just let it convert. And then, of course, when you want to get a little bit leaner, because estrogen, of course, when it attaches to the fat cell, it promotes a little bit of fat storage, especially around the chest and the glutes and the quads. So you might need to use Nolvadex for a certain period of time or reduce your estrogen. But, like on hormone replacement, a 15 to 1 testosterone 15 to 1 ratio of estrogen is pretty good. So you're resulting like 900 nanograms per deciliter and 50 picograms per milliliter estrogen range.
I like to keep it. I know that 15 to 1 is a good ratio, but just because I love estrogen so much, I like to keep it like a 10 to 1 because, estrogen, it's not just like you mentioned astutely, it's raised the HDL. And you mentioned many times in your videos, lowers the LDL. And of course, it lowers the total cholesterol. But also it has an antioxidant effect. Directly.
And the neuroprotective,
Yeah, neuroprotective as well, but also an antioxidant effect, like it'll reduce your ox LDL. So the actual...
No, I'm not aware.
Yeah. Well, we're both learning from each other. Some of these compounds you mentioned that you mentioned in your videos, like the two you just mentioned, I didn't know much about them. I still have to research them actually, but
it's good for detoxification. Sorry, continue.
Oh, please continue. Tell me more about them, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so the dianyl methane and calcium deglucarate, I had to research a lot for my wife because she's competing in the drug-tested federation, so you're very limited on what you can do. And I wanted to detoxify a little bit of the estrogen out because during the period, I do my best to maintain her periods, and she never really lost it, only postponed it during contest prep, even though she went as low as like 8% body fat. So you use a little bit of dianyl methane to take all the phytoestrogens and the excess estrogens out based on the menstrual cycle, right? Certain hormones go up and down, and then so she was able to lose a significant amount of body fat from her lower body that way. Because when she first started competing, she had those Asian thunder thighs, like a minotaur, basically. Yeah. So we had to get that down, and then you take dianyl methane and calcium deglucarate, and it's a slow process. So I started taking it, and then I noticed that my estrogen stays within the range, and I don't need any aromacin on hormone replacement.
Very interesting.
And then of course the phytoestrogens from the plastic, and then the glutens, and detoxification of all the other hormones, and it's beneficial.
I'm really gonna look into these. This is very. And this just shows you the wealth of information he has on his channel. I mean, I was surprised to come across things I didn't know, I never heard about. I'm like, this is exciting, actually.
There's a few smart comedian heads out there.
Yeah.
It's got them on one hand or two hands, probably, but
so But the estrogen, you know, it has three things. So obviously it has the cholesterol impact, but then it prevents the oxidation because of the antioxidant effect of the actual LDL particles, which is sort of that oxidation that causes it to get lodged. Yeah.
Oh,
and it has a third thing, which is it causes a vasodilatory effect.
Yeah, yeah.
So it has three different impacts that we know of for cardio protection. So, you know, and obviously it's extremely
beneficial, you know, when your blood pressure goes up from you taking steroids, and your HDL goes down and your sexual binding globulin goes down. So all the benefits that estrogen has, the only reason why you need to lower it is pre-contest.
Yeah. You know, in fact, estrogen improves serotonergic activity in the brain as well, which leads to learning and memory benefits, as well as it has not just neuroprotective, but it actually causes neurogenesis, which means the creation of new neurons in two parts of the brain.
Right.
So that's my theory for why women get Alzheimer's more than men, because they have this protective hormone their whole life, and then it's gone in menopause, and it just shocks the brain.
Yeah. No, right, and that's why Fameron and all those long-acting estrogen injections are very beneficial. I'm helping a few women that went through menopause, and I tell them to get hormone replacement.
Yeah.
For women, you know, and then luckily their testosterone ratio is a little bit higher, so they can deal with the estrogen a little bit better, so they don't feel the same as when they took birth control in younger years, where they go through that roller coaster of being super hungry, super moody all the time. But with the Fameron, it's not Fameron, what is it called? I think it's called Fameron. It's like a brand of estrogen where it's like a it's like estrogen undecunate, something like that.
So very stable.
Yeah, and they do like once a month injections, and it just keeps the estrogen level stable, and then that's hormone replacement for women, and they feel great. Yeah, they feel great.
Okay,
so bit more, 2.5.
So moving briefly from this, I wanted to ask you. Well, I know we've taken a long time. Maybe we have a part 2 next time.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
We do.
Exactly.
I got time, man. I reserved up until 12 o'clock for you, so I got 50 more minutes.
Yeah, I didn't even see the time. It's been 2 hours. Okay, I think we're done for the first time. I have many more questions for you. Steve is a wealth of information, and I really enjoyed talking to you actually, and I really want to talk to you more.
Yeah, it was good, man. Good.
Next time we'll do more androgen discussion and more cognitive enhancement stuff, because Steve gets asked a lot about that, and he has views on certain compounds, and we'll talk about more health stuff also.
Sure.
Sounds good?
That's for sure, man. Sounds great.
It was an honor. Thank you for being here, Steve. I really appreciate it. All right. All right.
Thanks. Looking forward to the YouTube comment.